The Millionaire CEO frowned as a scruffy lost puppy wandered onto his mansion grounds. But when he checked its tag, his heart pounded. This wasn't just any dog. It was about to lead him to the 4-year-old daughter he never knew existed. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. A cold gust of wind drifted through the immaculate gardens of the Blackwood mansion that evening. Security lights cast shifting shadows across every hedge and fountain, making the place look both majestic and faintly ominous at the same time. High atop a flight of polished marble steps stood Jason Blackwood, the renowned Millionaire CEO, known throughout the business world for his ruthless decisions and sharp instincts. He was the last person anyone would expect to see, pacing with worry. Yet there he was, sleeves rolled up, clearly unsettled. Why had Jason felt so restless tonight? Even he couldn't answer that question. Normally, he arrived home from his towering office in the city to find comfort in the quiet grandeur of his estate. He had chosen solitude for years, living only with a small skeleton staff, investing every waking hour in his growing empire. His parents had passed on early, leaving him both the family name and a mansion older than any business credential. No spouse greeted him by the door. No lively voices echoed in the halls. He preferred it that way, or at least, he believed so. But on this particular evening, something had broken Jason's routine. It started with a single bark, distant yet insistent, drifting across the carefully landscaped grounds. As he stepped outside to investigate, he found the enormous wrought iron gates slightly ajar, an oversight that never happened with his top-tier security team. For a moment he believed it could be a break-in or a paparazzo desperate for a scoop. But instead, sitting by the gate on muddy paws, whimpering softly, was a small puppy. The dog's fur was tangled and dirty, and its trembling eyes pleaded for help. Jason, known for his strict composure, felt an emotion he rarely entertained: concern. He called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" The only reply came from the pup, who wagged its tail and let out a frail bark as though answering. He waited, half expecting an owner or a child to run up, claiming they lost their beloved companion. But no one emerged from the gloom of the late hour. Slowly, Jason approached. His hand paused mid-air. Such tenderness was unusual for him. "Shh," he said in a calm tone. He gently scooped the trembling puppy into his arms. Immediately, the pup nuzzled into the crook of his expensive blazer, leaving a streak of muddy paw prints. Normally, the merest stain would have set him off, but in that moment, none of it seemed to matter. He felt a curious pang in his chest. A wave of memory from his childhood flickered across his mind, flashes of a time when he, too, had been vulnerable, looking for comfort. Still balancing the puppy, Jason scanned the empty street beyond the mansion gate. Darkness spread across the suburban road. The guardhouse, oddly vacant, offered no answers. His security chief was away resolving a minor incident on a different part of the property, so for once Jason was alone in making sense of this intrusion. Casting one last glance into the night, he realized he had no choice but to bring the dog inside. The clock in the grand foyer chimed softly as Jason carried the little creature through corridors lined with paintings of his stern-faced ancestors. The footsteps of the staff echoed as they rushed to see what was happening. One of the butlers, an older gentleman by the name of Hastings, approached in surprise. "Sir, do you need a towel?" Jason nodded, clearing his throat. "Yes, Hastings, please. And have someone check the security footage around the gates. I want to know how this pup got in." His tone was clipped, businesslike, but beneath that mask was the unmistakable flicker of concern. While an assistant disappeared to find fresh towels and a cushion, Jason continued down the corridor until he reached the rarely used guest suite. The decor was pristine, gold accents, antique furniture, and plush carpeting that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Yet it felt as though no one had truly lived in these rooms for a long time. "I'll set him here for now," Jason said quietly, almost to himself. Carefully, he placed the dog on a soft blanket. The pup immediately curled into a ball, letting out a tiny whimper of relief. "You're safe," Jason murmured, gently stroking the matted fur. Something about the situation tugged at emotions he had long since buried. He hadn't realized how lonely the corridors of Blackwood Mansion could feel until he saw them through the eyes of a lost, frightened creature. Moments later, Hastings reappeared with the security feed update. He approached Jason with a tablet in hand, expression grim. "Sir, the cameras show the puppy wandering in by itself, but there's something else." He pressed play on the footage. There, at the edges of the screen, a child's face appeared fleetingly, half hidden by the iron gate. A little girl, possibly around 4 years old, watched from a distance as the puppy scrambled inside. Her eyes were wide, and then she vanished into darkness. She wore a pale jacket, the hood pulled up. Even from the grainy nighttime video, the staff could sense the timid fear in her stance. Jason leaned in, heart pounding. A child, alone at this hour? Did she abandon the puppy on his property? "Do we have any footage of her face?" he asked in a low voice. Hastings shook his head. "No, sir, that's the best angle we've got. It's as if she disappeared. No sign of an adult with her either." Jason's business instincts screamed that something was off. "Get more of our personnel out there now," he commanded. "She can't have gone far." A swirl of worry blossomed in his chest, stronger than he'd felt in years. Was she lost? Hurt? In trouble? At that moment, a second staff member, Ms. Carrington, the estate's house manager, stepped forward. "Mr. Blackwood, if I may, the child might have hidden from the cameras. There's a residential area a few blocks away that's less affluent. Could it be that she comes from there?" Jason scrolled back on the footage, scanning every second. The puppy had definitely trotted onto his grounds as if guided by someone. The girl's silhouette lingered outside the gate a moment longer before turning away into the shadows. Jason's mind snapped into focus. He had to find her, not just out of a sense of moral responsibility, though that was there, but also because the entire situation struck a chord inside him. Something about her reminded him of a distant memory, a face from his past he couldn't quite place. He realized that time could be crucial. If the girl truly was alone, she would be wandering the dark streets, possibly in danger. "Hastings, bring the car around," he ordered. "I'm going to search the neighborhood myself." The butler hesitated. "Sir, would it not be better to send someone from security?" It was a valid question. Jason was typically the last person to run personal errands. He was the CEO of an expanding conglomerate, a man who delegated everything from corporate expansions to dinner reservations. Yet here he was, insistent on going in person. Jason's expression left no room for argument. "I'm going myself," he repeated, gently smoothing the puppy's fur one last time. The pup's half-open eyes followed him, as if silently thanking him. "I need to see with my own eyes that this child is safe." Within minutes, the sleek black sedan pulled away from the mansion. Jason peered through the tinted windows, scanning the sidewalks under the flickering glow of street lamps. Night had fallen hard on the city's outskirts, painting everything in hushed tones. He slowed as he passed dimly lit houses. Occasionally, he rolled down the window, calling softly into the dark. "Little girl? Hello?" Street after street revealed no sign. A pang of worry jabbed his chest. What if she had run far away? Or worse, what if something had happened to her? The puppy's innocent brown eyes, as well as the fleeting glimpse of the child on that security feed, gnawed at his thoughts. He drove deeper into the older part of the neighborhood, where simple bungalows lined cracked sidewalks. Overgrown yards and flickering porch lights gave the area a haunted stillness. A memory stirred. He'd been here once, years ago, in a philanthropic event. The city council had asked for donations to renovate this area, but, like many philanthropic gestures, Jason had delegated the details. He'd never walked these streets personally. Now, each corner brought a strange blend of curiosity and regret. At last, he noticed something on the sidewalk ahead, small footprints in the damp ground leading toward a narrow alleyway. He parked and stepped out into the chill night, heart pounding. The footsteps were small, definitely a child's. Jason turned on the flashlight of his phone, shining it down the quiet alley. Each step echoed between the tall, dark buildings. The smell of wet concrete hung in the air. Was that a shadow moving at the far end? He advanced cautiously. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said into the darkness, feeling the absurdity of speaking to someone who might not even be there. Then, in the dim light, he saw her, a tiny figure crouched beside an old cardboard box, hugging her knees. The same hood from the camera footage partially concealed her face. Relief, tempered by worry, flooded Jason. He approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Hey, it's okay." He kept his voice gentle, the same tone he had used with the puppy. "Are you lost? I saw you near my house." For a moment she didn't move. Then she peered up, eyes shining with tears. Jason's heart clenched. There was so much fear in that gaze. Something unspoken, too, like an unnameable sorrow. He noticed her ragged shoes, the sleeves of her jacket too short, as if she'd outgrown it months ago. She looked so vulnerable, so alone. He crouched, extending a hand. "My name's Jason. I just want to help you." She studied him, saying nothing. In the distance, a stray cat knocked over a tin can, making her jump. Slowly, she placed her tiny hand in his. Her skin was icy cold, but it was her eyes that made his breath catch. They were a familiar shade of hazel, a color he'd seen only once before, long ago in someone he used to love. Suddenly, as if a hidden lock had clicked open inside him, a swirl of memories he had shut away for years flooded back. In that instant, an impossible suspicion flickered through his mind. Could it be? He whispered under his breath. He didn't dare form the words, but the child was looking at him now with a tentative trust that both warmed and shattered him. Gently, Jason guided her to her feet. One question pounded in his head, sending a chill through his entire body. Who exactly was this little girl? He wouldn't know the full answer until he brought her back to the mansion. Little did he realize how profoundly this single meeting would unravel everything he thought he knew about his past, about what it meant to truly care for another human being, and about the secrets that people close to him had quietly kept hidden for 4 long years. Back in the warmth of the sedan, Jason carefully helped the small girl into the passenger seat. Her shoes were damp, and her jacket was thin enough that she shivered each time a gust of the chilly night air slipped through the open car door. As the engine hummed to life, he glanced sideways. She cradled her hands in her lap, peering up at him with a mixture of uncertainty and shy relief. Jason felt a strange surge of protectiveness, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a very long time. Even though he was known for towering confidence in a boardroom or behind a podium, right now his heart pounded as if he were the most clueless man on earth. "Everything will be okay," he said softly, tugging the seatbelt around her. He tried to sound reassuring, though he was fighting an inner storm of questions. "We'll get you somewhere warm." She remained silent, eyes as round as the puppy's from earlier. Her breath made small clouds against the chilled window. Jason could only guess at what she must be thinking. Who was this stranger whisking her away in a fancy car? Where was she supposed to go now? And why had she left that puppy behind at his mansion? As they wound down dimly lit streets, Jason found himself glancing at her reflection in the rearview mirror, straining to see more of her face beneath the hood. Do you have a name?" he asked, trying not to sound too abrupt. She hesitated. Her small hands fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve. Then, in a voice barely louder than a whisper, she replied, "I'm Lily." A single name, quiet as a breeze. Jason felt his mind reel. Lily. It rang a bell so faint he almost thought he was dreaming. He pressed on gently, not wanting to overwhelm her. Lily, that's a very pretty name. He paused, swallowing questions that threatened to tumble out. Are you hurt? Do you need a doctor? She shook her head, letting a few stray curls fall from her hood. He noticed how frail she looked, how her fingers trembled. But no outward injuries that he could see. Just the marks of someone who had been through more than a 4-year-old ever should. When she spoke, her voice was nearly lost in the hum of the car engine. I'm just cold. In that moment, everything else blurred. His daily investor calls, his next strategic acquisition, the countless demands on his schedule. None of it mattered as much as making sure Lily was safe. He turned up the car's heater and reached into the back seat, grabbing a spare blanket one of the staff had left after a long drive last winter. Here, wrap this around you, he murmured, offering a small smile. She pulled it tightly across her shoulders. Her eyes flickered toward him, an unspoken question hovering. What would happen next? Just before they approached Blackwood Mansion's main gates, the overhead security light illuminated Lily's face more clearly. Jason sucked in a sharp breath. In the glimmer, he saw how the shape of her features tugged memories out of the shadows. Her eyes, they weren't just a random hazel. They resembled the eyes of a woman he had once cared about deeply, a woman he'd let slip away from his life for reasons too complicated to unravel now. His mind spun with the realization he'd been avoiding all evening. Could Lily possibly be? Before he could chase that thought further, the mansion gates creaked open. The staff had scrambled to reset the security system. Hastings stood by the entrance, looking both anxious and relieved when he saw the CEO's car gliding onto the property. The puppy was still in the foyer, resting on a thick cushion, watched over by Ms. Carrington. The moment the child saw the pup through the car window, she jolted upright. "You have him!" she gasped, sounding more animated than before. Without waiting, she unbuckled, dashed out of the car, and ran straight to where the puppy lay. The staff parted, stepping aside. Hastings glanced at Jason, clearly startled by the little girl's sudden arrival, but trusting his employer's decision to bring her in. Clutching the puppy to her small chest, Lily murmured, "I'm so sorry I left you. I didn't know if they'd help." The puppy's tail wagged weakly, but with clear happiness, as though reuniting with an old friend. A hush fell across the foyer. Jason, standing behind Lily, found the staff watching him for direction. Would they call the authorities? A social worker? Jason swallowed hard. Every rational part of him insisted on alerting the police. Yet a quieter, deeper instinct resisted. He couldn't stand the thought of handing this child over without understanding her story. Besides, something was telling him that Lily's situation was far more personal than mere chance. He cleared his throat. "Hastings, Miss Carrington, please see that Lily—" He paused, almost expecting the staff to question him. "And this puppy gets something warm to eat. Let's settle them into the downstairs suite for now." A few staff members exchanged curious looks, but they nodded respectfully, hurrying to carry out his request. From the corner, the head of security stepped in. "Sir, we traced the puppy's path from the gates but found no other footprints leading off the property. The child must have—" He trailed off, eyeing Lily uncertainly. "She must have snuck away somehow. There's no sign of an adult with her." Jason only nodded. He knelt beside Lily, placing a steady hand on her shoulder, trying to appear calm for her sake. "We'll keep you safe, okay?" He took in her wide eyes, noticing tears threatening to spill over. It was surreal, seeing a lost child in this pristine mansion that had never truly felt like a home. "Can you tell me where your mother or father is?" He ventured gently, dread creeping up his spine at the possibility of the answer. Lily's gaze dropped, and she shook her head. For a moment he thought she would burst into tears. Then she whispered, "I only have Mama. We live far." She paused, voice trembling. "But she's sick. I couldn't wake her up. Then the puppy ran away. I followed, but..." I got lost." Each sentence hammered at Jason's heart. The child's mother was sick? Where? How had Lily ended up at his gate? A flood of protective instinct flared. What if the mother was the person he suspected? The timeline would make sense. The child was about 4 years ago. That was around the last time he'd seen Ashley, the woman who had once held his heart. They had parted under complicated terms. He had left to expand his business and she'd refused to follow, having her own dreams. And there was that final disagreement that never quite resolved, a bitterness overshadowed by a sorrow he'd buried. Trying to quell the tremor in his voice, Jason guided Lily toward the suite. The staff had laid out fresh pajamas, hot chocolate, and a warm place for both the girl and puppy. "You can rest here tonight," he said gently, flipping on a lamp. The light revealed plush rugs and tastefully arranged furniture, though it all looked too grand for a little kid. Lily's eyes darted around, overwhelmed. "Thank you," she said softly, hugging the puppy closer. An awkward pause ensued. Jason didn't know quite how to be with children, especially one who just might be connected to him by more than circumstance. For the next hour, the staff discreetly helped Lily bathe and change into pajamas. Ms. Carrington, having a gentle side that Jason rarely saw, sat with her while she sipped the hot chocolate. Down the hall, Jason paced in his study, wrestling with his swirling thoughts. If Lily was indeed his daughter, how would he even begin to process that? And if her mother was in dire straits, he couldn't just ignore it. But another question burned just as fiercely. If Ashley was Lily's mother, why had Ashley never told him about the child? Had something gone so wrong that she felt she couldn't reach out? Was she hiding Lily to protect her from the intense public scrutiny around his wealth, or from the ruthless aspects of his business empire? A knock on the study door pulled him from his thoughts. Hastings entered quietly, holding a phone. "Sir, we did manage to find an address that might belong to Lily's mother. We ran a quick check based on the partial details Lily was able to give." He handed Jason a small slip of paper. The address was located in a modest area, about half an hour away from the estate. "Thank you, Hastings," Jason murmured, reading it. "Send a few staff to check the place. Quietly. If there's someone ill, we'll get them immediate care." Hastings bowed, turning to leave. Jason's grip tightened on the slip of paper. This was it. The first clue about Lily's background. Before the butler exited, Jason spoke again, voice low with worry. "Do me a favor. Don't mention any of this to the media or even to the rest of the staff. Keep it contained." He knew how quickly rumors spread, how the tabloids hungered for a scandal. The last thing Lily needed was an onslaught of cameras at her door. Hastings nodded. "Of course, sir." Once alone, Jason sank into the leather armchair, letting out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. On the table beside him lay a photo from years ago. He and Ashley, standing in front of a bright city skyline. They were younger then, full of high hopes and big dreams. But something in their eyes, especially Ashley's, hinted at an unspoken hesitation about the path he was set on. Jason had chosen ambition. He had soared to heights he'd never even imagined possible. Yet now, faced with this small child asleep under his roof, he questioned whether he'd flown too far from the ground where real connections grew. Eventually, he stood and walked back toward the suite. The hallway was quiet. Soft lamplight spilled onto the carpet. Gently, he opened the door a crack. Lily was fast asleep on the bed, one arm slung protectively over the puppy. She looked so peaceful, as if this was the safest place she'd been in a while. Watching her steady breathing, Jason felt a tender warmth that was both foreign and comforting. He closed the door carefully, thinking of how her short life, whatever it had been up until now, had led her here to Blackwood Mansion. He also couldn't stop the echo of those hazel eyes in his memory, a matching set from someone he'd never truly forgotten. Tomorrow, he would find out the truth. But tonight, she was safe. He would stand guard, determined to confront whatever revelations and responsibilities lay ahead. Morning light slipped through the heavy curtains of the downstairs suite, casting soft rays across the bed where Lily was curled up. The puppy, nose nestled into her side, stirred first, its little paws stretching out. Lily woke to the warmth of sunshine and the unexpected comfort of an unfamiliar but undeniably luxurious room. For a fleeting moment she looked serene. Then a flicker of recollection passed over her features. She wasn't home. Her mother was nowhere in sight. In the adjacent corridor, Jason had barely slept. He'd insisted on keeping watch near Lily's door throughout the night. Every so often he'd check in quietly to ensure the child and her furry companion were still resting. Now, sensing movement, he smoothed out his suit jacket and carefully pushed the door open. His heart twisted at the sight of Lily's bewildered expression as she realized she wasn't where she'd gone to sleep the day before. "Good morning," he said softly, stepping inside. Her eyes snapped up, still cautious. The puppy gave a small yip, tail wagging. She looked around, seemingly registering that this imposing man was the one she had followed last night. "Morning," she murmured, hugging her knees. "Where's Mama?" Her voice trembled, and the question pierced Jason's chest like a blade. He cleared his throat. "Some of my people went to find her," he answered gently. "They'll bring help if she's sick." There was a moment's pause in which Lily simply nodded, though anxiety never left her face. Jason sought to give her something more reassuring. "Would you like breakfast? My staff can make anything you'd like." She hesitated, looking unsure if it was okay to accept, but eventually she gave a tentative nod. "Maybe toast and jam?" Her voice, so shy and quiet, broke something inside him. She wasn't used to asking for much, he could tell. "Toast and jam, coming right up," Jason said, trying a warm smile. He motioned for her to follow. As they walked through the winding corridors of Blackwood Mansion, Lily kept close to the walls, eyes roving over the elegant decor. Crystal chandeliers, ornate vases, and antique paintings, like a museum more than a home. She held the puppy close, as if it was her only familiar anchor. Soon, they arrived at a bright breakfast nook. Crisp morning light flooded in from tall windows that overlooked the manicured grounds. The puppy sniffed around curiously before settling by Lily's feet. Moments later, Ms. Carrington appeared, quickly laying out a tray with toast, jam, and a glass of fresh juice. She also placed a small bowl of water for the dog. Lily slid into a chair, still looking slightly overwhelmed by everything. Jason took the seat opposite her, ignoring the pang of realization that this might be the first normal meal she'd had in a while. She took a tentative bite, then another, seeming almost surprised at the taste of sweet jam. Jason watched, torn between relief and sorrow. How had things gotten to this point? Where exactly had Ashley, if it really was Ashley, been living? Why hadn't he known? He forced himself to stay composed, leaning slightly forward. "Lily," he began gently, I want to help you and your mom, but I need to know if she has any family around or someone else who takes care of her. Do you remember any addresses or phone numbers?" She considered the question, brow furrowing in thought, but only shook her head. "It was always just us." Her voice dropped. She used to talk about someone, but she didn't say his name. She just said, "He was gone." Jason's chest tightened. "Someone," he repeated quietly, each word like a weight on his heart. "Do you know why he was gone?" She hesitated. "Mama said he chose a different life, and she couldn't follow." Lily faltered, as if unsure she'd said too much. Jason nodded slowly, swallowing a surge of guilt. Every clue pointed to Ashley. "Listen," he said gently, gathering the courage to continue. "You're safe here for now. Eat as much as you want. Then maybe we can—" But he was cut off by Hastings, who approached wearing a grave expression. "Sir, may I speak with you?" Hastings asked, darting an uneasy glance at Lily. Jason excused himself and followed Hastings to an alcove out of earshot. His stomach knotted. Clearly the news wasn't good. "What is it?" "We found an address," Hastings said softly. "It matches what Lily described as home. It's a rundown apartment on the other side of town. I sent 2 of our staff to check it out. He paused, sympathy in his eyes. "They found a woman unconscious. Looks like she's been ill for days. She was rushed to the nearest hospital." Jason inhaled sharply. Do we know if it's Ashley Dawson?" The name tasted foreign on his tongue and yet so familiar. Hastings pressed his lips together. "They checked an old ID in the apartment. Yes, sir, it's Ashley Dawson." Everything seemed to blur. Jason's heart pounded as he demanded details. Was she stable? Had she woken? Which hospital had they taken her to? Hastings relayed everything he knew. Ashley was alive, but still unconscious, and in critical condition. Paramedics suspected pneumonia or another infection that had worsened due to a lack of proper care. Jason closed his eyes for a second, wrestling with the flood of emotions coursing through him: anger, fear, guilt. He pictured Ashley, proud and resilient, the woman he'd once admired for her uncompromising spirit, now helpless in a hospital bed. And Lily was here, possibly his child. He pressed a hand over his mouth, attempting to steady himself. Hastings lowered his voice. "Sir, I'm sorry. I know this is difficult, but if Ms. Dawson remains incapacitated, decisions will need to be made about the child's welfare. The authorities—" "I'm aware," Jason snapped unintentionally, then softened. "I'm sorry, Hastings. Please inform the hospital to put her bills on my account immediately. Arrange for a private doctor if needed. Money is no object. Just make sure she gets the best care possible." "Of course, sir." Hastings nodded. With that, Jason stepped back into the breakfast nook. Lily turned, noticing the agitation in his face. "Is Mama okay?" she asked, the puppy tilting its head in unison as if it too could sense the tension. Jason mustered a small, reassuring smile, kneeling beside her chair. "They took her to the hospital. She's getting help right now." He placed a gentle hand on Lily's arm. "She's going to be all right. We'll make sure of that." In the following silence, Lily's lower lip trembled. She looked on the verge of tears, but tried to be brave. The puppy nuzzled her ankles, offering what tiny comfort it could. "Can I see her?" she whispered at last. He nodded, swallowing the knot in his throat. "We'll go soon. I promise. Once the doctors say it's okay." A strange relief washed over him at the realization he'd have a chance to see Ashley, to confirm the truth face to face. Yet he was terrified, too, of her blame, her heartbreak, and his own sense of responsibility for whatever had befallen her. After breakfast, the staff politely ushered Lily into the living area, turning on a children's program on the massive television, hoping to distract her. Jason lingered in the hall, watching Lily's small figure from a distance. There was an unspoken fragility about her, like she'd only just escaped a far worse fate. Everything hinged on whether Ashley recovered. As he stood there, Ms. Carrington approached with a gentle question in her eyes. "Sir, do you think—" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Should we call Child Protective Services? The authorities might insist—" Jason's voice cut in before she could finish. "Yes, eventually. But let's hold off until we have more information. The mother isn't deceased. She's just ill. And we have resources." He glanced again at Lily, who was absently stroking the puppy's ears, eyes distant. "I want her to stay here, safely under our care until her mother is stable." Ms. Carrington nodded, understanding. Privately, the rest of the staff might have speculated on Jason's abrupt protectiveness. They knew he rarely allowed personal attachments to invade his professional demeanor, but his face now held an unmistakable determination. He would do whatever it took. Meanwhile, the swirl of memories refused to be silenced in his mind. The last argument with Ashley, the phone calls not returned, the time he'd overheard she'd left the city entirely. He had convinced himself she'd moved on. Part of him had almost hoped she'd found happiness elsewhere, free of his demanding lifestyle. Now all evidence suggested she'd been living on the brink of poverty, struggling alone with a child, maybe Jason's own daughter. A deep anger flickered, directed equally at fate, at himself, and possibly at Ashley for never reaching out. But that anger was quickly overshadowed by worry. Where had things gone so wrong? Taking a steadying breath, Jason motioned for Hastings. "Prepare the car, please. I'm going to the hospital." "Shall I arrange for someone to watch Lily?" Hastings asked. Jason hesitated. He felt reluctant to just leave Lily, even if the staff would treat her kindly. But he also knew she might be unsettled by the sight of her mother in a critical condition. After a moment he said, "Actually, bring Lily too. She deserves to see her mother, even if only briefly. It might help calm her fears." Minutes later, as the car rolled away from Blackwood Mansion, Lily sat in the back seat beside Jason, both of them enveloped in a silence thick with expectation. The puppy dozed in Lily's lap, apparently confident that as long as Lily was near, it was safe. Jason stared out the window, thinking of all the unsaid words between him and Ashley. If she regained consciousness, he would have to speak them, or risk losing any chance at redemption for his own failures. Soon the tall silhouette of the hospital came into view, and with it, the promise that this day would tear open old wounds and unearth secrets neither he nor Ashley could keep hidden any longer. The hospital's automatic doors slid open, ushering Jason and Lily into a bustling world of beeping monitors and hurried footsteps. The harsh fluorescent lights contrasted sharply with the quiet opulence of Blackwood Mansion, and the air smelled of disinfectant and lingering anxiety. Holding Lily's small hand in his own, Jason led her through the corridors, determined to see Ashley and to get answers, no matter how painful. A nurse at the reception desk recognized Jason's name immediately and directed them toward a private wing he'd arranged at the last minute. He'd used his considerable influence to ensure Ashley was placed in a better room than the crowded general ward. Lily clutched the puppy, now wrapped in a soft blanket, close to her chest, her eyes darting in fear as they passed rows of gurneys and anxious families gathered in hallways. "Is Mama here?" she whispered, looking up at Jason. Her voice was timid, but he caught a faint hint of hopeful excitement that she'd finally be reunited with her mother. He nodded. "Yes, we're almost there. The doctors want to help her get better." When they arrived at the designated room, its door marked with the number 312, Jason paused, placing a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. He realized he wasn't sure what condition Ashley would be in or how Lily might react. There was a moment's hesitation, but the child's gaze, full of quiet determination, urged him onward. Pushing the door open, they stepped into a small yet orderly space. A single bed stood by the window, monitors quietly humming around it. Tubes and IV lines connected to the pale figure lying against crisp white sheets. Even from the threshold, Jason could see how fragile she looked. Her once lively eyes closed, her skin pallid, cheekbones more pronounced than he remembered. The heart monitor gave a steady beep, a thin, reassuring thread of life. Lily let out a soft cry of recognition. Without waiting, she ran to the bedside. Gently, she placed the puppy on a nearby chair and clasped her mother's hand, tears gathering in her eyes. "Mama," she choked out, carefully leaning her head against Ashley's motionless arm. A knot tightened in Jason's chest, watching mother and daughter. One memory after another rose unbidden. Ashley's bright laughter from years ago when they first met, her determined face as she argued with him about leaving the city, the heartbreak in her eyes the last time he saw her. He'd never imagined she would end up in a hospital bed, fighting for her life, while he lived a world away, both literally and metaphorically. Suddenly, a woman in a white coat entered. She offered a polite yet cautious smile, glancing at Jason. "Mr. Blackwood, I presume. I'm Dr. Keller, overseeing Ms. Dawson's treatment." She looked to Lily, who was still clinging to Ashley's hand, then back to Jason. "I see you brought her daughter." Jason cleared his throat. "Yes, Lily's been worried. We both have." "How is Ms. Dawson doing?" Dr. Keller consulted the chart. "Her vital signs are stable for now, which is positive. She arrived severely dehydrated, undernourished, and with a serious respiratory infection. Pneumonia that's likely been untreated for several days." She paused, dropping her voice so Lily wouldn't hear. Had she come even a day later, it might have been too late. Jason swallowed, dread creeping through him. "Will she recover?" The doctor's expression was measured. "We have her on strong antibiotics, IV fluids, and respiratory support. We'll do everything possible. But the next 48 hours are critical." She studied Jason's tense posture. "Are you family?" There it was, the inevitable question. Jason hesitated, feeling the gravity of the words he was about to say. "We used to be close," he answered carefully. "And I believe Lily may be my daughter." An unreadable flicker passed over the doctor's face. She nodded softly, not prying any further. "Understood. Well, Ms. Dawson will remain sedated for at least another day while we manage her condition. If you're her only contact, you may need to make decisions on her behalf." At that, Lily turned around, hearing fragments of the conversation. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Is Mama sleeping?" She peered at Dr. Keller, worry etched on her small features. "Yes, sweetheart," Dr. Keller replied kindly, crouching down to Lily's level. "Your mom is resting so she can get better." The puppy, sensing the shift in mood, hopped onto Lily's shoes as if to guard her. A wave of protectiveness coursed through Jason. He didn't want Lily's innocence overshadowed by medical crises and adult fears. "Let her stay by Ashley's side for a bit," he murmured to the doctor. "I'll handle any paperwork or decisions needed." With a professional nod, Dr. Keller stepped aside, motioning Jason to follow her into the hallway. Once they were out of earshot, she handed him several forms. "Ms. Dawson has no listed emergency contact, no insurance details. Normally, we'd reach out to child services if we suspect a minor is at risk, but in this case..." Her gaze rested on Jason's expensive suit and the protective way he'd spoken to Lily. "I assume you'll take responsibility?" "Yes," Jason stated firmly. "I'll cover all medical bills. And Lily, she'll be with me. I'll keep her safe until Ashley recovers." Just speaking those words ignited a swirl of conflicting emotions. He was claiming a fatherly role he'd never practiced, yet it felt strangely right. The doctor began explaining the treatment plan, the potential complications. Jason listened, mind darting between worry for Ashley's health and the new sense of fatherhood inching into his consciousness. Every few minutes, he glanced back through the window at Lily, who sat perched on a small stool by Ashley's bed, the puppy in her lap. The child's solemn devotion revealed how accustomed she was to caring for her mother in small ways. After finalizing documents and ensuring Ashley was in the best possible hands, Jason returned inside. Lily looked up hopefully. "Can we stay longer?" He kneeled beside her chair, nodding. "Of course." The child exhaled, placing one of her tiny hands over Ashley's. The hush in the room was broken only by the faint beep of the heart monitor and the rhythmic hiss of the oxygen device. A swirl of guilt gnawed at him. Why had Ashley not reached out for help? True, they'd parted on tense terms, but not so bitterly that he would ever have abandoned her, let alone a child if he had known. He wondered if pride and fear of rejection had held her back, traits both he and Ashley shared too well. As the hours drifted, Lily dozed off in the hospital chair, the puppy curled protectively at her feet. Jason gently scooped her into his arms so she wouldn't strain her little neck. He was suddenly struck by how light she was, like she hadn't been eating enough. She gave a tiny sigh and nestled against his shoulder, trusting him more than he felt he deserved. Dr. Keller stuck her head in. Mr. Blackwood, we'll continue monitoring Ms. Dawson through the night. You can stay as long as you wish, but your little girl might be more comfortable if you took her home." The doctor's eyes were empathetic. "We'll contact you if there's any change." Jason bit his lip. He wanted to remain here, to be present the moment Ashley stirred. But Dr. Keller was right. Lily needed rest, real rest. And from the looks of it, the puppy was equally exhausted, head lolling from side to side. "All right. Thank you, doctor," he replied. Leaning over, he whispered softly to Ashley as though she might hear, "You get better, okay? Lily's safe with me." The words felt both awkward and heartbreakingly sincere. Then carefully, he carried Lily and guided the puppy out of the room. A tension in his chest reminded him that this was just the beginning of whatever revelations awaited them. Night had fallen again by the time Jason's car wound back through the gates of Blackwood Mansion. Lily slept on the back seat, her head pillowed on a rolled-up jacket Ms. Carrington had given her earlier. The puppy, similarly worn out from the day's stress, was curled near her legs. Jason drove slowly, a swirl of streetlights and shadows dancing across his face. In his mind, 1,000 questions thundered. Would Ashley recover, or had the damage gone too far? How would Lily adjust to life here if Ashley needed a long stay in the hospital? And the heaviest question of all, was Lily truly his daughter? The car pulled to a smooth stop in the circular driveway. Hastings, along with a couple of staff, stepped out to help. Jason quietly lifted Lily into his arms once more, the child stirring slightly but not fully waking. The staff whisked the puppy away to clean its paws and to set up a small bed in Lily's suite. Once Lily was tucked under the blankets, Jason lingered. His gaze kept returning to the soft rise and fall of her breathing. Each exhale reminded him of how fragile this new reality was. While it would be simpler, on paper, to contact Child Protective Services and let the system handle it, he couldn't bring himself to do that. Not yet. Something in him wouldn't allow it. He raked a hand through his hair and turned off the bedside lamp. With Lily settled, he headed to his study. A single lamp cast a pool of golden light onto the massive mahogany desk. For a moment, he stood in front of a framed photograph that had silently taunted him for years. Him and Ashley on a trip to the countryside. She was laughing at something he said, her eyes crinkling with genuine mirth. He remembered that day vividly, before the fights, before the tension of their separate ambitions. Time had twisted them both, evidently leading her into hardship. The knowledge ripped at him. Was it purely her choice to walk away? Or did he share responsibility for not trying harder to find her once he felt that emptiness creeping into his life? Finally, Jason sank into the plush leather chair. A sharp ring from his private phone startled him. Checking the screen, he saw it was Dr. Keller. His heart jumped. Was something wrong? "Yes, Dr. Keller," he answered, voice strained. The doctor's words were calm yet grave. "I'm calling with an update on Ms. Dawson. There are some complications with her lungs. She's stable, but we'll likely have to keep her sedated a bit longer." Jason closed his eyes, letting out a breath. "Understood. Just do whatever is necessary. Spare no expense." When the call ended, silence echoed through the study. He leaned back, trying to swallow the fear that Ashley might not fully recover. Glancing at the time, he realized it was well past midnight. How quickly life had changed in just 24 hours. Yesterday he'd gone to bed as a solitary CEO, haunted only by his own ambitions. Today, he was effectively caring for a 4-year-old girl, possibly his own, while the woman he once loved hovered between life and death. Despite exhaustion, Jason knew he wouldn't sleep. Instead, he tapped the desk phone, requesting Hastings to come in. A moment later, the butler appeared as impeccably composed as ever. "Sir?" Hastings asked softly. "Hastings, I need your assistance with something rather delicate," Jason began, exhaling slowly. "You're aware of the child, Lily. suspect strongly she's my daughter. Even saying it aloud felt surreal. I want you to discreetly arrange a paternity test. Do it quietly. No labs that might leak to the press. Hastings nodded, his expression neutral but empathetic. Understood, sir. I'll see to it immediately. And one more thing, Jason continued, massaging his temples. We'll need to set up a comfortable environment for Lily. Clothes, toys, whatever a child her age might need. She'll be staying here indefinitely. Keep Ms. Carrington in the loop. Make sure Lily doesn't want for anything. Very well, sir, Hastings answered, already compiling a mental list. When he left, the mansion felt eerily still. Jason stared out the tall windows, glimpsing the faint shape of the city lights in the distance. In them, he saw the reflection of a life he'd pursued relentlessly. Wealth, prestige, power. Yet none of that could ward off the sense of regret over how little he'd known about the most precious things. Love, family, and the daughter he might have had all along. Eventually, the night wore on. Jason's thoughts circled with memories and hopes, weaving an emotional tapestry he barely recognized. He realized that if Ashley pulled through, they'd both have to confront the heartbreak of their past. If Lily was truly his, there was a chance they could forge a new reality, together, or at least with him supporting them both. But if Ashley's condition worsened, or if the test results said otherwise, the path ahead would be far more complicated. As dawn approached, a pale light seeped into the study. Jason closed his eyes, letting exhaustion wash over him at last. Whatever the future held, he knew one thing. He couldn't run from his mistakes anymore. The next time he saw Ashley conscious, he would face her with honesty. No more facades, no more half-truths. Lily deserved that. So did Ashley. So, in some way, did he. He rose from the chair, muscles stiff, and quietly moved through the silent corridors back to the guest suite. Cracking the door open, he found Lily and the puppy both in gentle slumber, the plush bed dwarfed by the child's small frame. He stepped closer, noticing how Lily's brow furrowed slightly even in sleep. Carefully, he pulled the covers up over her shoulders and stood there, feeling the weight of responsibility unlike anything he'd experienced as a CEO. "Good night," he whispered, though it was nearly morning. Turning away, he hoped, somehow, that when Ashley awoke, they'd find a path toward healing, or, at the very least, that they'd be able to say the words that had been unspoken for so long. The next few days wove into a pattern that felt both comforting and tense. Each morning, Jason woke early to check on Lily before heading to the hospital for news about Ashley. Lily, often trailing behind him with the puppy in her arms, would wait in the polished white hallways while he cornered Dr. Keller in hushed conversations about Ashley's prognosis. "She's stabilizing," the doctor finally told him late on the third day. "Her fever's come down, and her lungs are responding to treatment. We may try to reduce her sedation soon to see if she'll regain consciousness." Jason exhaled a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "Thank you," he murmured, a glimmer of hope lighting his eyes. For Lily's sake, perhaps for his own as well, he needed Ashley to pull through. There were too many questions only she could answer. Back at Blackwood Mansion, Lily gradually began to open up. Ms. Carrington and the rest of the staff did their best to ensure she never felt alone. They'd filled her new room with simple toys, fresh clothes, and a little dog bed for the puppy. Though she still carried a lingering wariness in her eyes, Lily clearly found some comfort in the mansion's surprising warmth. Jason found himself peeking in on her frequently, caught off guard by how just seeing her color pictures or giggle at a cartoon brought an odd sense of peace to his otherwise turbulent mind. And yet, beneath the surface, he was restless. The paternity test was in process, carried out by a trusted private lab, and every hour felt like a countdown to an outcome that could either confirm his suspicions or else shatter them. Jason half expected himself to be conflicted, uncertain if fatherhood was what he truly wanted. But the more time he spent with Lily, the more he realized he was terrified of losing her. His chest tightened whenever he imagined handing her over to strangers if the worst happened with Ashley or if some legal snag occurred. Finally, one afternoon, Hastings approached with a thick envelope in hand. "Sir," he said, voice notably subdued, "the test results have arrived." Jason's heart kicked into high gear. He steeled himself, beckoning Hastings into the privacy of his study. Once inside, he closed the door, inhaling deeply. The envelope felt heavier than any financial report he'd ever handled, heavier than the mergers and acquisitions that had defined his career. With trembling hands, he slipped the papers free. A few lines of text and numbers leapt out at him, forming a conclusion that shook him to his core. Probability of paternity: 99%. Lily was his daughter. Jason sank onto the edge of the desk, blinking as if to make sure he wasn't misreading the words. Emotion welled up, mingling relief, gratitude, and a fierce protectiveness. He felt Hastings's presence like a steady pillar behind him. "Congratulations, sir," the butler offered with a soft dignity. Jason swallowed hard, unable to speak at first. Then quietly, "She's mine." Just saying it made his pulse quicken. A tear threatened at the corner of his eye. He blinked it away, unable to recall the last time he'd felt so vulnerable. Lily was his child, no longer just a possibility, but a living, breathing little girl who depended on him more than he'd ever imagined. Even as joy flooded him, a new wave of anxiety followed. Why had Ashley never told him? Had she feared he'd reject them, too consumed by his ambition to care? Or was there more to the story? Steeling himself, Jason stood, slipping the document back into its envelope. "Thank you, Hastings," he said gently. "Please, don't mention this to anyone yet. I need to speak with Ashley first." The butler bowed respectfully and departed. For a long moment, Jason stayed alone in the study, his reflection in the polished glass cabinet staring back as though he were a different man altogether. He felt an odd flicker of guilt, remembering how he'd poured every ounce of energy into building an empire, leaving no room for personal ties. Or so he thought. Now, his success seemed hollow compared to the blessing of having a daughter he'd known for less than a week. He found Lily in the garden, perched on a stone bench under a blossom-laden tree. She was stroking the puppy's silky ears while it dozed contentedly. When she caught sight of Jason, she waved. He approached, carefully hiding the emotional weight swirling inside him. "Hey, kiddo," he said, voice low but warm. "What are you up to out here?" She shrugged. "Just thinking about Mama." Her tone was subdued, her gaze drifting to the petals scattered across the grass. "Is she getting better?" Jason sat beside her, cautious not to crush any of the flowers. "Yes," he said softly. "The doctors say she might wake up soon." Lily's face brightened just a little. Then she turned serious again. "You said you might be my daddy," she whispered. There was no accusation in her voice, only curiosity, a child's simple question about a world she still didn't fully understand. "Are you? Really?" He was momentarily stunned by her directness. Clearly, Lily was more perceptive than many children her age. He managed a small, reassuring smile, his throat tight. I took a test to find out," he confessed, his eyes searching hers. "And, yes, I am." Lily blinked, absorbing this news. Slowly, the corners of her mouth pulled into a hesitant smile. I kinda hope so," she whispered, voice trembling with a childlike relief. Her tiny fingers reached for his, and he enveloped her hand, heart hammering with love and responsibility he'd never known before. A rush of warmth coursed through him. He lightly squeezed her fingers. "I'm so sorry, Lily," he said, voice thick. "I didn't know. If I had known—" He left the sentence unfinished. The last thing he wanted was to taint the moment with bitterness over how Ashley had kept this secret. Lily looked up, eyes damp with emotion, and simply nodded. They sat like that for a while, the hush of the garden broken only by the distant sound of fountains trickling. At length, Lily spoke again. "Will Mama be mad, you know?" Jason hesitated. "We'll talk with her," he promised, choosing his words carefully. "Maybe she had reasons. But I'm not going anywhere now that I've found you." He brushed a stray curl behind Lily's ear, trying to convey reassurance even as his own uncertainties loomed. In the waning sunlight, father and daughter bonded in a way that felt natural yet surreal. Jason listened to Lily's stories of caring for her mother when she was sick, of living in a cramped apartment, of the times she'd wait outside a grocery store for Ashley to finish work. Each admission made his heart ache more, fueling the desire to right the wrongs they'd endured. That night, Jason felt an uncharacteristic calm wash over him. He read Lily a bedtime story, his first time reading a story to anyone in years, and he found himself grinning at the puppy's attempts to nibble the corners of the book. As Lily drifted off, he tucked the blankets around her, a sense of peace settling over the mansion. But he remained awake in his study, eyes on the clock. Dr. Keller had mentioned that Ashley's sedation was lightening. At any moment, the hospital might call to say she was awake. He played scenarios in his head of what he'd say when he looked into her eyes again. Would she apologize? Would she demand to leave with Lily? Did she blame him for abandoning her to poverty? Just before midnight, his phone lit up on the desk. He snatched it eagerly. Dr. Keller's measured voice told him what he'd been waiting to hear. "Ms. Dawson is conscious." Within half an hour, Jason was in his car, speeding through the empty streets. His mind surged with anticipation, dread, and a deep longing to see Ashley to make sure she was truly okay. The lights of the hospital parking lot glowed harshly as he pulled in. He strode through the corridors, ignoring the questioning looks from passing nurses until he reached Ashley's room. Dr. Keller stood just outside, arms crossed. She greeted him with a small nod. "She's alert, but still very weak. She asked for Lily first thing, but I told her you'd come. She's ready to talk, though you may need to keep it brief. She's still recovering." Jason steeled himself, heart hammering. The last time he and Ashley parted, it had been in anger and sorrow. Now, 4 years later, he was about to see her in a hospital gown, her body fragile from illness. And he knew they had far more at stake this time around. "Right," he said quietly. "I understand." Entering the room felt like walking into the deepest recess of his past. The lights were dim, a soft glow coming from the bedside lamp. Ashley lay propped up on pillows, her hair falling limply around her pale face. Yet her eyes, they were as bright as ever, locked onto him the moment he stepped in. Surprise flickered there, then pain, then something else. Relief, maybe, or fear. For a moment, neither spoke. Words failed him. He saw the slight tremor in her hand as she tried to raise it, the rasp in her breath. Eventually, she managed, "Jason." His name on her lips hit him like a tidal wave. "Ashley," he breathed, moving closer. He yearned to take her hand, but uncertainty rooted him in place. I'm so glad you're awake." She closed her eyes briefly, a tear sliding down her cheek. "Lily, she's safe?" Her voice wavered with desperation. "She's fine." Jason quickly reassured her, stepping forward. "She's with me at my home. I found her wandering near my gate. We didn't know you were so ill." His tone hinted at the question he couldn't yet bring himself to ask outright, "Why didn't you tell me?" Ashley nodded, relief washing over her. "Thank you for saving her," she whispered, gaze darting away as if she couldn't face him fully. An unsteady silence ensued. At last, Jason gently took a seat by her bed. I have so many questions." Her eyes flicked up, meeting his. He saw guilt there, laced with sadness. "Ashley, Lily is 4 years old. She's my daughter, isn't she?" She inhaled a shaky breath. Tears threatened again. "Yes," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. She's yours." He nodded, throat thick. "Why didn't you tell me?" Ashley bit her lip, the answer quivering in her eyes. "We drifted apart," she murmured, voice raw with regret. "You were so focused on your career, and I refused to uproot my life to chase yours. Then I found out I was pregnant. I was terrified. I tried to call once or twice, but you'd changed your number or your assistants blocked me. I had no way to reach you directly." Her eyes shone with pent-up emotion. "I told myself you didn't want us. I figured you'd moved on." Jason's heart clenched. He recalled how, during that period, he'd switched phone lines and changed personal emails to block out persistent media and business intrusions. He'd never imagined Ashley would be among those trying to contact him, that it would cost him so dearly. "Ashley," he swallowed hard, struggling to keep his composure. "If I'd known, I would have dropped everything to be there for you. Both of you. A tear traced down her cheek. "I didn't believe that," she admitted brokenly. "All I remembered was you leaving for your next big deal. I felt insignificant. And once Lily was born, I wanted to protect her from the frenzy of your world, from your business empire. So I stayed away." Emotions warred within him. Anger that she assumed he wouldn't have cared, regret for how distant he'd become. Mostly, though, sorrow that she had struggled alone, that Lily had grown up without him. He gently reached out, taking her trembling hand. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice rough. "I never wanted this." She let out a brittle laugh, tears falling. "Me neither, but now it's too late for regrets. Lily needed you, and I failed to provide anything better." Jason shook his head vehemently. "Don't say that. You did the best you could." For a second, anger flared. How had they both allowed life to steer them this far off course? But anger melted before the reality of Ashley's pale figure and tear-stricken face. She'd paid a steep price for their miscommunication. He took a slow breath. "We can't change the past, but now that you're recovering, and now that I know Lily's mine, I want to be part of her life, Ashley. I want to take care of you both, if you'll let me." His voice cracked with earnestness. In the low-lit hospital room, he silently vowed he wouldn't walk away again. Ashley's lips parted, fresh tears slipping free. She gave the smallest nod. "Thank you," she managed, relief mixing with a lingering uncertainty. There were no grand promises yet, just the fragile hope that they could salvage some kind of future for Lily's sake. As they fell into a quiet hush, Jason squeezed her hand gently, 1,000 unsaid words passing between them. They both sensed that reconciling their past and building a shared future would be no easy feat. But in that moment, seeing the gratitude and regret in Ashley's eyes, Jason felt something almost like peace, because at least, at long last, the truth was out in the open. It was close to dawn when Jason finally slipped out of Ashley's hospital room. The hallway lights buzzed faintly as he made his way back to the main entrance. Outside, a pale ribbon of light marked the horizon. He felt both hollow and oddly calm. Hollow, because now he fully grasped how much he'd lost in those 4 years apart from Ashley, never knowing his daughter. Calm, because Ashley was awake, aware, and Lily was safe. The ache of regret still burned in his chest, but at least there was hope to rebuild something, if they could face their past openly and fight for a better future. On the drive back to the mansion, the city streets were empty, painted a muted gray by the approaching sunrise. Jason's thoughts swung between the recent conversation, Ashley's raw confessions, her tears, her fragile acceptance of his help, and the practical steps needed to secure a stable life for Lily. He'd always prided himself on his strategic mind, on seeing obstacles and conquering them. But this was different. There was no contract to sign, no board to convince. Family was messy, emotional, and unpredictable. He arrived home to find Lily asleep in her bed, the puppy nestled against her cheek. The house staff had kept quiet through the night, ensuring no one disturbed her. Miss Carrington met him in the foyer, eyes carrying unspoken questions. Jason simply nodded, signaling that Ashley was conscious and stable. The relief on the house manager's face was genuine. Everyone, it seemed, had come to care about Lily, even in such a short time. Without fully planning to, Jason slipped into Lily's room. He watched her for a moment, the gentle rise and fall of her small chest a sweet reminder that she was no longer alone. She stirred at the sound of his footsteps. Slowly, her eyes fluttered open. "Daddy?" she said, her voice coated with sleep. Jason's heart did a small flip. She'd used that word unprompted. Soft wonder filled his eyes. "Yes, Lily," he whispered, approaching the bedside. "I'm here." She blinked, pushing herself upright. "Is Mama okay now?" He seated himself on the edge of her bed, reaching out to smooth the puppy's fluffy ear. "I just came from seeing her. She's still weak, but she's awake. She asked about you." Lily's face lit up with relief. "Can we go see her?" she asked, the puppy shifting in her lap as if echoing the request. Jason considered the question. Ashley had only just come out of sedation. Dr. Keller might advise caution, but he also knew how much mother and daughter needed each other's presence right now. "Let's see how Mama feels by lunchtime, okay?" he suggested gently. "Give her a bit of time to rest this morning, and then we can visit." Lily nodded, her relief not diminished. She twisted her fingers in the blanket. "Is she mad at me?" she asked out of nowhere, voice small. "Because I left her when she was sick." Jason's breath caught. No, Lily," he reassured, placing a hand over hers. "She's not mad. She's so glad you're safe. You did the right thing looking for help. That's what saved her." The puppy gave a quiet yawn, then snuggled into Lily's arms. Her shoulders relaxed. "Okay," she said softly. Her gaze lifted to Jason. "Did she tell you about me?" He suppressed a sad smile, recalling how Ashley had admitted Lily was his daughter. "Yes, she did. She's sorry she didn't tell me sooner, and I'm sorry I wasn't there for you from the start." Reaching out, he brushed Lily's hair gently. "But I'm here now." She nodded, letting her head rest against his arm. A tender silence stretched between them. In that moment, father and daughter found a shared solace. The past couldn't be changed, but the future lay open before them like a story waiting to be written. Once morning fully bloomed, the mansion came alive. Breakfast was laid out in the dining room. Fresh fruit, warm bread, scrambled eggs. A quiet feast to show Lily the household was committed to her care. She sat close to Jason, the puppy peering over the table edge with keen interest. Occasionally, Lily giggled when the puppy tried to stand on its hind legs for a better view. Jason, normally reserved, found himself smiling just watching Lily's delight. If anyone had told him a week ago that he'd be beaming over a child's giggles at breakfast, he would have dismissed it as impossible. Now it felt oddly natural, like he'd been missing this all along without knowing. He was mid-bite when Hastings stepped in. "Sir, a moment?" The butler's tone was respectfully low, hinting at something private. Jason excused himself and followed Hastings into the adjoining corridor. "There are some inquiries from the local press," Hastings explained. "It seems word got out that a child was found on the estate, but no details yet. They're curious if it's family or—" He trailed off, leaving the sentence hanging. Jason's jaw tightened. That was the last thing Lily needed, a media frenzy. He'd built his empire in the public eye, meaning paparazzi or tabloids often tried to latch on to any personal tidbit. "Maintain a firm, no comment. Let our PR team handle it quietly. I won't let Lily's privacy be invaded." He paused, thinking of the bigger picture. "And ensure extra security at the gates. I don't want anyone sneaking onto the property." Hastings nodded. "Understood, sir. Also, there's a board meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Are you planning to attend?" The question reminded Jason that life hadn't paused just because he'd discovered a daughter. His multi-billion-dollar corporation still churned forward, demanding his attention. Yet the thought of returning to that corporate routine felt strangely hollow at the moment. Reschedule it, he decided abruptly, surprising even himself. I have more urgent matters right now. If Hastings was shocked, he hid it well. Yes, sir. With a respectful nod, he slipped away, leaving Jason in the corridor with a swirl of realization. He was choosing Lily, choosing family over business demands. It felt like a monumental pivot, one that might send ripples through the company. But for once, he didn't care about the fallout. By noon, Lily was dressed in a new outfit, a simple pale blue dress with small flowers, courtesy of Ms. Carrington's latest shopping trip. She stood by the front door, puppy in tow, eager to visit Ashley. As the car pulled out of the mansion's long driveway, Jason glanced in the rearview mirror at Lily's bright anticipation mixed with the puppy's casual curiosity. For a moment he marveled at how life could change so drastically in mere days. They arrived at the hospital amidst the usual bustle, hurried staff, worried families, the faint odor of antiseptics lingering everywhere. Jason navigated past a few onlookers, aware that his face was recognizable. He gently guided Lily to Ashley's room. The door was slightly ajar, so Lily pushed it open tentatively. A beam of sunlight slipped in, illuminating Ashley, who was propped up on pillows, eyes still carrying traces of fatigue. The moment she spotted her daughter, Ashley's face blossomed with relief and joy. Tears welled as Lily rushed to the bedside. "Mama!" The little girl set the puppy on the chair and flung her arms around Ashley's waist, careful of the IV lines. Ashley held her gently, voice trembling. "Oh, my Lily, I'm so sorry I worried you." Her gaze flickered to Jason, gratitude and uncertainty both swirling in her expression. "Thank you for bringing her." He nodded, stepping forward, hands in his pockets. "Of course." A brief silence. Then he added softly, "How are you feeling today?" "Better," Ashley said, attempting a small smile. She looked fragile but more alive than before, some color returning to her cheeks, her voice steadier. "The doctors say I'll need to stay a while longer, but I'll recover." Lily perched on the edge of the bed, eagerly filling Ashley in on the mansion, the really big TV, the soft puppy bed, the delicious breakfasts. Ashley listened, occasionally glancing at Jason with wonder. He could see the underlying guilt in her eyes, the knowledge that Lily had grown attached to her father so quickly, a father Ashley had kept from her for years. Eventually, Dr. Keller entered, checking vitals and updating Ashley's chart. "Your lung function is improving," she informed with a measured smile. "But we need to ensure a full course of antibiotics and rest." Ashley's brow creased. Will Lily be okay staying at Jason's for a while? I don't want to burden him, and She cast a hesitant look at Jason. "I'm not sure what happens next." Before Jason could speak, Lily interjected, "I like it there, Mama. The puppy and me have a room, and Daddy says he's not leaving us." She spoke the words with a child's straightforward innocence, like it was the simplest fact in the world. Ashley's eyes reddened at the word Daddy. She slowly exhaled, looking at Jason for confirmation. He met her gaze. "She's welcome at my home as long as necessary," he said firmly, keeping any frustration or anger at bay. "And so are you, once you're better." Her eyes widened, tears threatening. "Jason, I can't just—" He moved closer, lowering his voice to keep Lily from overhearing. "We'll figure it out," he insisted gently. "You need proper care, and Lily deserves stability. We can talk about details later, but let's focus on you getting well first." Ashley closed her eyes, overwhelmed. "Thank you," she whispered, voice trembling. As Dr. Keller finished her checks, Ashley sank back into the pillows. She was drained just from the conversation and the flood of emotions. Lily stayed by her side, occasionally stroking Ashley's hand as if to promise she wasn't going anywhere. Hours slipped by in a blur of gentle conversation and rest. By early evening, Lily was yawning, the puppy curling at her feet. Ashley noted her daughter's fatigue. "You should go back, sweetie. Get some rest. I'll be right here," she murmured, pressing a soft kiss to Lily's forehead. Jason gently coaxed Lily away from the bedside. "We'll come back tomorrow," he promised Ashley. "Call if you need anything." Ashley nodded, weariness evident. "I will. Thank you, Jason. Truly." Outside the room, Lily clutched Jason's hand. "Will Mama come home soon?" she asked, sounding hopeful. Jason guided her toward the elevator. "I hope so, kiddo," he replied, "but the doctors want her to stay a bit longer just to make sure she's fully recovered." Lily nodded, trusting his reassurance. They stepped into the elevator alongside the puppy, who looked rather proud of itself for riding along so calmly. Jason smiled slightly, reminded that even the simplest moments, like taking Lily and a puppy home, now filled him with a quiet contentment. Downstairs, as they exited through the main hospital doors, a flash went off nearby. Jason stiffened, glancing over to see a photographer half hidden behind a potted plant. More cameras clicked. A small cluster of tabloid reporters advanced, snapping pictures. Lily clung to Jason, alarmed. "Mr. Blackwood, who's the child?" a voice shouted from behind a camera. "Is this your daughter? Where's the mother?" Jason's jaw clenched. He shielded Lily with an arm, motioning to his security detail, who rushed forward to form a protective barrier. "No comment," Jason said sharply, guiding Lily toward the waiting car. The cameras flared again, capturing Lily's frightened expression. The puppy gave a startled yip as they slid into the vehicle. Slamming the door, Jason signaled the driver. "Go! Now!" In the rear seat, Lily's eyes shone with tears, confusion, and fear. Jason murmured soothing words, gently stroking her hair. "It's okay," he told her, hiding his own anger at the invasive press. "They won't bother us at home." His gut churned. He'd known this day would come, that the media would catch wind of his sudden fatherhood revelation. He just hadn't expected it so soon, or so aggressively. He was furious on Lily's behalf. She was just a kid who'd endured enough. When they reached the mansion, it was dusk. Lily clung to Jason's hand as they walked inside. The staff rushed to greet them with concern, having spotted the camera flashes through security feeds. Jason offered clipped reassurances, then took Lily upstairs. The puppy, clearly sensing her distress, stuck close, nudging her for comfort. In Lily's bedroom, Jason knelt down beside her. "Hey," he said softly, "are you all right?" She sniffled, nodding but looking shaken. "Who were those people?" He searched for the right words. "They're reporters. They like to take pictures and ask questions about people, especially people like me because of my job and money." He hesitated, not wanting to overwhelm her with details. "They're not dangerous, but they can be pushy." Lily frowned, wiping her eyes. "I don't like them," she whispered. Jason gently pulled her into a hug. "I know. Neither do I. That's why we'll do everything we can to protect you. They won't get inside the mansion." She breathed unsteadily, then relaxed into his arms. The puppy hopped onto the bed, giving them a curious tilt of its head. Jason patted the comforter, silently inviting the dog closer. A soft giggle escaped Lily when the puppy licked her cheek, and Jason felt his tension ease. At least for now, they were safe. Still, a current of worry underlined his thoughts. What if the tabloids wouldn't back off? What if they hounded Ashley at the hospital? He realized he needed to act swiftly, perhaps a careful, controlled statement to the press, ensuring Lily and Ashley's privacy was respected. Later that night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Jason found himself in his study once more, scheduling urgent calls with his PR team for the morning. He gazed out the window, city lights shimmering beyond the estate's walls. Despite the mounting storm of attention, he felt more certain than ever that protecting Lily and helping Ashley recover was his top priority. How things had changed. Just a week ago, the biggest concern on his mind had been a new corporate merger. Now, he was a father, preparing to shield his daughter from media intrusion. And somewhere upstairs, a 4-year-old slept peacefully, trusting him with her future. He allowed himself a weary smile as he shut down the laptop. Ashley was on the road to recovery. Lily was here, safe under his roof. Challenges lay ahead, but for the first time in a long while, Jason felt like he was standing exactly where he needed to be, not in the boardroom, but at home, ready to heal old rifts and build a family he never knew he wanted. Morning arrived in a burst of low-hanging clouds and gray skies. The air felt heavy with the promise of rain, a fitting backdrop for the quiet tension that had settled over Blackwood Mansion. Jason woke with a start, not to his usual alarm, but to the soft whimpers of the puppy coming from Lily's bedroom. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes, pulled on a robe, and made his way down the corridor. There, he found Lily sitting on the carpet, the puppy perched in her lap, tail wagging. She was dressed in pajamas patterned with little stars and had clearly been awake for a while. The moment Lily saw him in the doorway, she offered a tentative smile. "Morning, Daddy," she said, voice hushed, as though afraid to disturb the quiet of the enormous house. Jason's heart fluttered at the word Daddy. It still felt new and fragile on his ears. "Morning, sweetheart," he replied, patting inside. "Everything okay?" She nodded, hugging the puppy. "I heard thunder. The puppy got scared, so I stayed with him." Jason crouched beside them, the plush carpet sinking under his knees. A distant rumble of thunder confirmed Lily's words. "He's lucky to have you to comfort him," he said gently. The pup looked at Jason with trusting eyes, as if acknowledging the notion of a family that now included all three of them. Though the air outside was humid and thick, the mansion's interior remained serene, if a bit restless. He glanced at Lily's face, noticing the faint shadows under her eyes, no doubt from yesterday's run-in with reporters. "Tell you what," he offered, forcing a reassuring smile. "Why don't I have Ms. Carrington bring up breakfast here? Then we can talk about visiting your mom again." Lily's features brightened. "Really? In my room?" She threw a quick glance at the puppy. "He'll like that." Jason patted her shoulder. "Then it's settled." He rose and phoned Ms. Carrington, who agreed wholeheartedly to a breakfast served in Lily's space, away from the prying gazes of the outside world. While Lily and the puppy dined on toast and scrambled eggs, arranged neatly on a child-friendly tray, Jason ventured down to his study. He had calls to make, tasks to juggle. His PR team waited on a video conference line, likely restless. Settling into his leather chair, he flicked on the large screen. "Good morning, sir," greeted a professional-looking woman whose sharp eyes hinted at many late nights spent outsmarting media storms. Behind her, several other faces from the corporate PR department nodded in unison. Jason inclined his head. "Let's get to it. I assume you've seen the tabloids from last night." They pulled up images of him carrying Lily out of the hospital, her face partially hidden, the puppy's ears visible around the corner of the shot. Glaring headlines speculated about a secret child and demanded answers about the mother's identity. "We'll need a concise statement," the PR rep explained. "Something that addresses the rumors without giving them more fodder. You know how tabloids escalate at the slightest chance." Jason rubbed his temples. "I won't deny her existence. She's my daughter, but I also refuse to let them pry into her life. And especially, I don't want them swarming the hospital where her mother is recovering." The team nodded. "We can craft a brief acknowledgement. Something along the lines of, yes, Mr. Blackwood recently discovered he has a daughter. He requests privacy for the family at this time," and so forth. That should, in theory, calm the immediate frenzy. "In theory," Jason echoed. He knew better than most how the press seldom just calmed. Still, it was a step worth taking. "All right, draft it, clear it with legal, put it out under my name by noon." He paused, scanning their faces. "We also need to address internal communications. The board is bound to ask questions. We can't let rumors undermine confidence in leadership. One of the PR associates cleared his throat. Understood. We'll keep it succinct for the board as well. Emphasize that your personal matters won't affect corporate operations. Jason tried not to wince at the phrase personal matters, though he'd used it himself countless times to excuse various intrusions. This time, however, those personal matters were more important than any business deal. Exactly, he stated, but they'll have to understand I'm taking some time away. Let them squirm a bit, he thought privately. If they couldn't accept that he had a family emergency, then they never truly valued him beyond his ability to seal deals. The call concluded. Jason leaned back in his chair, a swirl of relief and apprehension dancing through him. He'd set the wheels in motion to protect Lily's privacy, but he knew the paparazzi would persist. He'd have to remain vigilant, especially once Ashley was discharged from the hospital. A glance at the clock spurred him to hurry. Ashley would be waiting to see Lily, and Lily was eager to go. Within the hour, father and daughter were on the road again. Dark clouds gathered overhead, and the sky crackled with distant thunder. Lily gazed out the car window, eyes tracing the jagged line of an approaching storm. The puppy sat in her lap, occasionally letting out little squeaks whenever lightning flashed. This time, Jason had arranged for a discreet entrance at the hospital, avoiding the main doors. They parked at a side lot, from which a security guard escorted them through an employees-only hallway. In Ashley's room, the calm hum of medical machinery gave a welcome sense of constancy. Ashley was sitting up more fully, hair brushed back, color slowly returning to her cheeks. The relief that flitted across her face the moment she saw Lily told Jason that nothing mattered more to her than this little girl. Lily rushed to the bedside, puppy close behind, tail wagging. "How are you feeling, Mama?" Lily asked breathlessly. She held up the puppy so it could inspect Ashley's hand with a gentle lick. Ashley smiled, tears threatening. "Better, sweetheart. Much better now that you're here." She glanced at Jason, voice quieter. "Thank you for bringing her." He nodded, stepping back a bit to let them have their moment. His gaze flicked to the medical chart on the bedside table. Dr. Keller had scribbled notes indicating a slow but steady recovery. Something inside him lifted. If Ashley kept improving, perhaps she'd be discharged soon. But overshadowing that hope was the knowledge of the press outside clamoring for photos. He wondered whether Ashley had glimpsed the headlines. Perhaps it was best if she didn't until she was stronger. She must have noticed the tension in his posture because her eyes shifted to him. "Something wrong?" she asked softly, prompting Lily to turn her small face his way as well. Jason cleared his throat. "There's a bit of media interest," he admitted. "They caught pictures of us leaving the hospital yesterday." He forced a calm tone, trying not to alarm Lily. "I'm handling it." A shadow passed over Ashley's expression. "That's exactly what I was afraid of," she murmured, pressing her lips together. For a moment, sadness flickered, memories perhaps of why she'd stayed away to begin with. "I don't want Lily hounded by paparazzi." Jason moved closer, lowering his voice. "Neither do I. I've made a statement, asked them to respect our privacy. We'll see how they respond. I'm also ramping up security around the mansion and around you, here." Ashley's eyes glistened. "Jason, I don't want you to upend your life. He reached for her hand, voice gentle but firm. "My life is upended for the better, Ashley," he said, glancing at Lily. "I should have been there from the start, and I won't shirk that now. Let's just get you well, get you home. Then we'll face the rest together." A subtle tremor ran through her. "Home," she repeated softly, as though uncertain if she deserved the word. She looked at Lily, who was telling the puppy to behave, oblivious to the adult tension. "You're sure?" "Absolutely." He caught her gaze, nodding. "My home. Our home, if you want it to be. One step at a time, though." Ashley's throat worked around a knot of emotion. Finally, She exhaled shakily, brushing her free hand through Lily's hair. "Thank you." In that moment, the steady beep of the heart monitor and Lily's quiet humming formed a soothing backdrop. Despite the swirl of storms outside, both literal and metaphorical, a fragile peace existed in that hospital room. As the hour grew late, Dr. Keller arrived, checking vitals and updating Ashley on her progress. "If you continue improving," she said optimistically, "we might discharge you within a couple of days. You'll still need follow-ups and rest, but there's no reason for you to stay in the hospital once your antibiotics course is stable." Lily practically bounced with excitement. Ashley smiled, though a trace of worry lingered in her eyes, no doubt pondering how she would transition back to normal life after so much upheaval. Jason read her apprehension and gave her a look that said, "We'll handle it." When it was time for Lily to head back to the mansion, she hesitated, casting forlorn glances at her mother. Ashley squeezed her hand reassuringly. "It's okay, sweet girl. I'll call you in the morning, and soon I'll be back with you and Puppy." Lily managed a nod, reluctant but trusting. She gave Ashley a delicate hug, and Jason felt that same pang of protective love for them both. Exiting through the side corridor again, they bypassed any waiting reporters. The skies had finally opened up, releasing the day's tension in a burst of heavy rain. The sound drummed on the car's roof as the driver pulled out onto the main road. Lily sat quietly in the back, the puppy dozing against her side. Halfway home, she spoke softly. "Daddy, can Mama sleep in my room too when she comes? It's big enough, and Puppy can sleep with us." Jason's heart twisted. "We'll see, Lily," he replied gently. "She might need to rest somewhere quieter, but we'll figure something out. I promise you'll be close to each other." He forced a slight chuckle. "Besides, we might be able to find a better bed for Puppy than just your room floor." She giggled, a sweet sound that made his chest bloom with warmth. That childlike laughter reminded him that for all the worry and media drama, Lily's well-being came first. If the biggest concern on her mind was which bedroom her mom would occupy, that meant she felt safe enough to dream about normal day-to-day life again. By the time they reached the mansion, the rain had eased to a gentle patter. Flashbulbs, however, burst in the distance, revealing a lurking group of reporters near the gates, held back by newly reinforced security. Jason grimaced, ushering Lily inside quickly. The staff closed ranks, ensuring no camera would capture her face again. "Do they live outside now?" Lily asked, peeking over her shoulder while clutching the puppy. Jason crouched next to her in the foyer. "They can't come in," he said firmly, "but they might hang around for a while, hoping for pictures or quotes. We'll have to ignore them. Keep living our lives." Lily nodded, a trace of fear in her eyes. Then her stomach gave a loud gurgle, prompting a spontaneous giggle. She patted her belly sheepishly. "I'm hungry." That simple confession dispelled some of the tension, allowing Jason to breathe again. He signaled to the staff, "Let's get some dinner." While the mansion's workers scampered to comply, he escorted Lily to the dining room, noticing she clutched the puppy tighter whenever thunder rumbled. They settled around a smaller table this time at Lily's request. She claimed the massive main dining hall was too echoey. Over bowls of warm soup and freshly baked bread, father and daughter found a sense of normalcy in conversation. Lily spoke of her excitement about Ashley coming home, while Jason gently broached the topic of how the paparazzi might not go away immediately. He explained they might have to avoid certain places or let security escort them if they ventured out. She listened, wide-eyed, but didn't complain. Instead, she asked about the next day's plans. "Can I make a picture for Mama, so she can see it when she wakes up?" The question melted Jason's heart. "Of course," he replied, smiling. "We'll pick out some art supplies." He paused, realizing Lily had likely never had the luxury of more than a few crayons. "We can get you pencils, markers, paints, whatever you like." She beamed, leaning forward as if confiding a secret. "I always wanted more colors." Sometimes Mama got me 1 or 2 new crayons when we had extra money. Jason's stomach twisted with guilt. He had more art supplies in the mansion's storage rooms than Lily had probably seen in her lifetime. "Now you can have as many as you want," he promised, trying to keep emotion from cracking his voice. That night, after Lily was tucked in, Jason stood by one of the large windows in his own bedroom, gazing out at the watery reflection of floodlights illuminating the grounds. He could see the faint silhouettes of paparazzi beyond the gate, like hungry shadows. Yet inside these walls, Lily slept peacefully, and Ashley was on the mend. He recalled how Ashley had once told him, during an argument, that true happiness wasn't found in profit margins. Back then, he'd scoffed, sure she misunderstood his ambitions. But now, as he weighed every joy and heartbreak of the past days, he realized she'd been right. There was no contest between corporate triumphs and hearing Lily call him Daddy. No contest at all. Eventually, the storm outside eased to a gentle hush. Jason stepped away from the window, mentally preparing for the next day's challenges. By now, he realized, the biggest battles were not in boardrooms, but in the delicate negotiations of trust, care, and the forging of a family. He whispered into the quiet, "Hold on, Ashley, we'll get through this." Then he switched off the lights, letting the mansion slip into darkness, comfortable in the knowledge that, though storms loomed outside, the home he was rebuilding within these walls shone brighter than it ever had before. The next morning ushered in a subdued sort of calm at Blackwood Mansion. Beyond the walls, reporters still lingered like prowling cats, but for now they kept their distance, deterred by Jason's newly tightened security. Inside, the staff moved quietly about their tasks, attuned to the delicate balance of a household suddenly filled with a child's laughter and the weight of adult concerns. Lily had started her day in the library, eager to find inspiration for the drawing she wanted to make for her mother. She sat at a large wooden table, colored pencils scattered before her, an extravagant array in more shades than she'd ever known existed. The puppy dozed at her feet, content in the hush of the grand room. Sometimes Lily glanced around in awe at the rows of leather-bound books stretching up the walls, a faint reminder of how different life was now compared to the small apartment she used to share with Ashley. Jason stood in the doorway, arms folded. He couldn't help smiling at the sight of Lily leaning over her paper, tongue peeking out in concentration as she sketched. Then, in a more serious corner of his mind, he wondered how to ease her, and Ashley, into a new normal once Ashley was discharged. A question loomed. Would Ashley actually choose to stay here long-term? Or would she feel compelled to return to the life she'd known? With a quiet step, he entered the library. Lily looked up. "Daddy, I'm almost done with the picture," she announced. Her eyes sparkled. The word Daddy still draped everything in a veil of wonder for them both. Jason pulled up a seat, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Can I see?" She nodded shyly, lifting the page. He leaned in and saw that she'd drawn 3 figures holding hands beneath a bright sun, a tall man in a suit, a woman with flowing hair, and a little girl between them, cuddling a small puppy, a simple childlike depiction of something precious, a family. The sun had extra rays, as though determined to shine brighter than normal. A lump rose in Jason's throat. "It's beautiful," he said softly, meeting Lily's eyes. "You, your mama, and me with the puppy. She'll love it." She beamed with pride, carefully adding a few final touches of green to the grass. Jason tousled her hair and leaned back. "Later we'll take it to her, but first Ms. Carrington has set up some breakfast." Lily hopped off her chair, the puppy rousing to follow with a wagging tail. They made their way to the dining area where fresh fruit and pastries had been laid out. As Lily picked out a croissant, Jason's phone buzzed discreetly in his pocket. He glimpsed the caller ID. The hospital. "Sorry, sweetheart," he murmured, stepping aside to answer. Lily nodded, still engrossed in selecting the sweetest-looking pastry. The puppy pawed at her leg as though encouraging her choice. Jason's voice was low as he spoke into the phone. "Yes, Dr. Keller?" His face brightened a moment later. "She's cleared for discharge? That's great news. All right, yes, I'll pick her up myself." Hanging up, he glanced at Lily, his expression filled with a gentle excitement. "Mama's coming home today." Lily's eyes went wide. She practically dropped her croissant. "Really? Like, for good?" Jason nodded. "Well, the doctor wants her to rest, but yes, we can bring her here. You can help get a room ready." He noticed Ms. Carrington already at the edge of the room, hearing the news. The house manager smiled and hurried off to prepare fresh linens and any medical aids Ashley might need. Lily squealed happily, hugging the puppy. "I'm so excited, Daddy!" As soon as breakfast ended, the mansion sprang into motion. The staff set up a comfortable bedroom on the ground floor to minimize Ashley's need for stairs. Fresh flowers were placed on a side table, the windows were opened for a gentle breeze, and Ms. Carrington personally arranged a welcome tray with tea and mild soup. Meanwhile, Lily darted around the corridors, occasionally returning to Jason's side to ask, "When are we leaving?" Every few minutes. Finally, after confirming with the hospital that Ashley was dressed and awaiting pickup, Jason motioned to Lily. "Let's go get her," he said, offering his hand. A short while later, their car pulled around to the hospital's quieter side entrance, where Dr. Keller waited with Ashley in a wheelchair. She wore a simple outfit the nurse had helped her into, a soft blouse and loose slacks, still looking a bit pale. But her eyes glowed with relief at the sight of Jason and Lily. She managed to stand, albeit shakily. Lily darted forward, wanting to hug her mother but halting when the nurse reminded her to be gentle. Ashley smiled through the obvious fatigue. "I'm okay, honey, just a little weak," she reassured, stroking Lily's hair. Then her gaze flicked to Jason. "Thank you for coming to get me." Jason nodded, supporting her elbow with a careful touch as she stepped toward the car. "No more taxis," he said quietly. "Let's just focus on your recovery." To avoid the paparazzi, security guards guided them behind a row of parked ambulances. Even so, a few distant camera flashes sparkled through the drizzling rain. Ashley instinctively tensed, eyes darting to Lily. Jason put a protective arm around both of them, ushering them inside the vehicle. The puppy, wearing a little harness Lily insisted on, tried to wiggle onto Ashley's lap, but she patted its head and gently placed it by Lily's feet instead. As they drove away from the hospital, Lily's face glowed with excitement. Ashley, though exhausted, squeezed her daughter's hand. Jason watched them from the driver's seat. He'd chosen to drive himself this time, craving some sense of personal involvement in this homecoming. The trip passed quietly, each occupant lost in private thoughts. Ashley stared out at the wet streets, her expression unreadable. Lily chatted about how the puppy had learned a new trick and how big her new room was. Jason occasionally chimed in, describing the ground-floor suite Ms. Carrington prepared. He refrained from mentioning the press at the mansion's gates, not wanting to add to Ashley's worry. When they finally arrived, Ashley's eyes widened. She'd seen the mansion before, of course, years ago when Jason first inherited it, but stepping inside with the knowledge that she and Lily were about to live there felt surreal. The staff welcomed her with warm, respectful smiles, each politely introducing themselves if they hadn't already. A hush of deference cloaked Ashley's entrance, acknowledging her fragile state. Lily led the way, practically pulling her mother's hand, chattering about the cozy bed awaiting her. Ashley, moving carefully, took in every detail, the high ceilings, marble floors, polished banisters. Jason stayed close, mindful of her pace, heart twisting at how she seemed simultaneously fascinated and uneasy, as though not sure if she belonged. They reached the prepared suite, a spacious room with large windows looking out onto the rose garden. Soft curtains, a plush armchair, and the fresh floral arrangement on a side table lent a homely warmth. Ashley exhaled as she took a seat on the bed, leaning back against the pillows. Lily plopped beside her, proud of the welcoming space. "I can't believe it," Ashley said under her breath, voice unsteady. "This is so much, Jason." He shrugged gently. "You need rest and comfort. Let us worry about everything else. I just want you to heal." A wave of sincerity shone in his eyes. Ashley swallowed. "Thank you." Then, after a moment, she gestured for him to sit in the armchair across from the bed. Lily busied herself showing the puppy around the edges of the room, pointing to where its little basket of toys was kept. The air felt charged, as though Ashley and Jason both knew a conversation hovered, a conversation that delved deeper than mere gratitude. At length, Ashley softly cleared her throat. "So, how do we handle this? I mean, I don't want to impose on your life." Jason leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You and Lily aren't imposing," he said firmly. "This house has been quiet, almost empty for too long. We can figure out whatever arrangement works best for you. If you'd rather have your own place eventually, I won't force you to stay. But at least for now, while you're recovering." His gaze flicked to Lily, who was holding up a squeaky toy for the puppy. "Let's just be together." Ashley's eyes brimmed with conflicting emotions, gratitude, wariness, tenderness. "I never planned to accept help," she admitted in a choked whisper. "Not after so long on my own. But I can't deny Lily a chance to have you in her life." Jason sank back, exhaling. "She deserves us both," he said quietly. "Don't think about the past regrets right now. Let's give her stability." They shared a fraught look, old wounds swimming beneath the surface. If Lily hadn't been there, maybe that look would have erupted into an argument or tears. But the child's presence lent a gentler tone. They had a daughter who needed unity, not conflict. Ms. Carrington knocked discreetly, pushing in a trolley with tea and light snacks. "I thought you might be hungry, Ms. Dawson," she said, her voice kind. Ashley looked relieved and accepted a mug of tea with a murmured thanks. The puppy trotted over, trying to sniff at the trolley's offerings, only to be gently redirected by Lily. "You can have a treat later, silly," Lily scolded, giggling when the puppy playfully nipped her finger. Ashley watched them, a soft smile forming. Despite the nerves fluttering in her stomach, a sense of safety was blossoming, something she hadn't felt in years. Perhaps she could relax here, at least for a time, without worrying about rent, medicine, or groceries. The cost of that relief was swallowing her pride and trusting Jason again. When Lily started yawning, Ms. Carrington offered to take her back to her own bedroom for a mid-afternoon nap. The child gave her mother a farewell hug, promising to return with the drawing she'd made. "I'll show you soon, Mama," she said, before disappearing with the puppy at her heels. That left Ashley and Jason alone in the softly lit room, the hum of air conditioning the only background noise. Jason cleared his throat. "We should talk about practical things," he began. "Finances, paperwork, ensuring Lily's properly registered for schooling." Ashley lifted a hand. "I know, we do need to talk. But maybe give me a day or two just to catch my breath?" She gave a wry smile. "I still feel like I might topple over if I stand too long." He nodded, contrite. "Right, of course. I'm pushing ahead too fast." A small silence stretched between them. Ashley's voice softened. "Thank you for letting me stay," she said again, eyes brimming with sincerity. "I never imagined you'd—" Jason reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm sorry you thought you couldn't count on me," he murmured. "I can't change the years we lost, but I'm here now." She squeezed back, a tear slipping free. No." At that moment, a distant rumble of thunder rolled across the sky, echoing the lingering uncertainty that might still threaten their fragile truce. Yet here, in this suite, a new beginning felt possible, an unspoken vow to prioritize Lily's happiness above old resentments and regrets. Jason stood, carefully releasing Ashley's hand. "Rest," he instructed gently. "Call if you need anything. Ms. Carrington or I will come running." She offered a faint nod, letting her eyes close as she sank into the pillows. The short journey from the hospital had already fatigued her. Yet beneath the exhaustion, a flicker of relief radiated. She and Lily were safe, together, under the watchful care of a man she once believed she'd lost forever. As Jason left, he paused in the doorway, letting the subtle hush of the corridor envelop him. The staff tiptoed around, respectful of Ashley's need for quiet. In the distance, Lily's laughter rang out, probably coaxing the puppy into another game. With each passing day, the mansion felt less like an echoing relic and more like a home humming with promise. Still, Jason knew the real challenges hadn't evaporated. Reporters lingered at the gates, the corporate board demanded his attention, and Ashley's emotional scars ran deep. But for now, the path forward lay in the small steps, like providing a warm bed, a moment of peace, a family meal. Each gesture stitched together the rifts of the past. He whispered to himself as he moved down the hall, "We'll make this work." His voice held steady conviction, and in the hush of the grand estate, it echoed like a quiet vow to protect what he'd almost lost, and to build a bridge from regrets to redemption for them all. For the next few days, a quiet routine settled over the mansion. Ashley spent most of her time resting in the ground-floor suite, sipping warm teas and taking short walks around the rose garden to rebuild her strength. Lily was overjoyed to have her mother close, frequently popping in to show her new drawings or to reenact the puppy's latest antics. Jason hovered in the background, organizing care schedules with Ms. Carrington, ensuring Ashley's meds were taken on time, and giving Lily a sense of stability that the little girl had never quite known. Yet beneath the tranquil veneer, tensions simmered. Paparazzi continued to cluster around the gates at all hours, sometimes shouting questions or snapping photos through telephoto lenses aimed at the upper windows. Security guards rotated in constant shifts, determined to keep prying eyes out. Each day a new headline appeared: CEO's secret family, tycoon's mystery romance, or scandal at Blackwood Mansion. Even though Jason's PR statement had been released, tabloids thrived on speculation. Ashley tried to brush it off, but he saw the strain in her eyes. She'd glance toward the front windows whenever she heard a car in the driveway, or freeze if a camera flash lit up the evening gloom. She confided to Jason one morning, voice low with unease, "I left your world to avoid all of this. Now it's crashing down on Lily." Her fingers twisted in her lap. I don't know if I can handle it." Jason gently took her hand, careful not to crowd her. "We'll figure it out," he promised, though even he wasn't entirely sure how. "I won't let them harass you or Lily. Over time, the press will lose interest." Privately, he wondered if that was wishful thinking. Still, he had enough resources to keep them at bay, at least physically. Meanwhile, his corporation's board grew restless. Jason's extended absence from high-stakes meetings left a vacuum that some members were eager to fill. A few key allies urged him to return, if only to show face, but Jason resisted. Late one afternoon, he locked himself in the study to join a critical video call with the entire board. On screen, their expressions were tense. The lead director, an older man with silver hair and a measured tone, wasted no time. "Jason, we understand you have personal matters, but the shareholders need reassurance about leadership. Several major deals are on the cusp of final negotiations. Your presence is key." Jason leaned forward, palms pressed together. "I'm aware of the deals. My team is fully briefed on my directives. I've provided all approvals needed." He tried to keep his voice controlled, mindful that the entire board was likely eyeing him for signs of weakness. "I'm not stepping down, but my family situation demands attention right now. I trust each of you to handle day-to-day details until I'm back at full capacity." A woman in a sharp suit frowned. "Rumors about your secret child are swirling through financial circles. There's concern about whether personal scandal might destabilize the company's public image." Jason's jaw tightened. "There is no scandal. My daughter is simply a child I didn't know I had. The public will move on soon enough. In the meantime, I expect all of you to focus on business, not gossip." His words, though calm, carried a definite edge. A hush fell. Slowly, the board members nodded. The call ended with a tentative agreement that Jason would remain partially remote for another couple of weeks, then reevaluate. As the screen went dark, he exhaled, rolling the stiffness from his shoulders. Normally, he thrived on corporate strategy sessions, but now they felt painfully trivial compared to ensuring Ashley's well-being and Lily's newfound sense of security. Emerging from the study, he found Lily in the grand foyer, flipping through a picture book with the puppy draped across her feet. She looked up, sensing his mood. "Are you okay, Daddy?" He forced a reassuring smile. "Just business stuff," he said, ruffling her hair. "Nothing you need to worry about." Yet Lily's innocent question gnawed at him. The mansion corridors felt like a maze of responsibilities he couldn't quite escape: fatherhood, Ashley's health, corporate demands, and the relentless press. Despite the staff's best efforts, a certain tension crackled in the air. That evening, while Lily and the puppy were occupied with cartoon characters on the living room TV, Jason brought Ashley a tray of soup. She sat in bed with pillows propped behind her, sifting through pages of medical bills and personal papers she'd left behind in her old apartment. Her brow furrowed in frustration. "Some of these are overdue," she murmured, voice trembling on the edge of embarrassment. "I had no idea how long I was out of commission. Rent, utilities." She trailed off, glancing up at Jason. "I owe so much." He set the tray down gently. "Don't worry about it," he said. "I'll cover all outstanding bills." She looked torn between relief and pride. "I never asked for a handout. I always managed on my own, even when it was tough." Jason sighed, placing a hand over hers. "I'm not giving you a handout. This is the least I can do after missing 4 years of Lily's life. It's a reparation, if anything." His tone was soft but unwavering. Ashley closed her eyes, nodding slowly. "It's just, I hate feeling powerless." She admitted the words like a confession. "But I also hate the thought of dragging Lily back to that cramped place, especially with everything she's experienced here." Jason's gaze flickered with understanding. "Then don't. Stay here while you recover. Beyond that, we can figure it out together. Whether you want your own space eventually, or if you—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "If you'd like to stay for good, I won't turn you away." A swirl of emotion crossed her face. For a moment, it seemed she might reach for his hand again, but she hesitated. "Thank you," she whispered. "Let me just adapt, one step at a time." He nodded, stepping back. "Of course, no pressure." Seeing how drained she was, he quietly excused himself, leaving Ashley to her thoughts. Days melted into a cautious rhythm of healing. Ashley grew stronger, managing short walks around the mansion with Lily or Ms. Carrington. The press presence became more sporadic. Newer celebrity scandals lured away some paparazzi, though a handful of the most persistent lingered. At night, when lightning still flashed from the summer storms, Lily would pad into Ashley's room with the puppy, curling up on the bed until she felt safe enough to return to her own suite. Jason took joy in watching Lily's face light up as she discovered new corners of the estate. Secret staircases, the old music room with its grand piano, the greenhouse brimming with exotic plants. But he also saw Ashley's caution, the way she often looked at the expensive surroundings as though they were too good to be true. Sometimes she'd catch sight of her reflection in an ornate mirror and look away quickly, as if not recognizing the woman she'd become. One afternoon, Ms. Carrington suggested Lily try an online learning program until she could be enrolled in a local school. Ashley agreed, albeit hesitantly. She'd homeschooled Lily in a makeshift manner before, but recognized the mansion had better resources. Jason offered to set up a small study room near the library. "You can help her with assignments whenever you're feeling up to it," he told Ashley. "No rush, just whenever you're ready." Ashley nodded, exhaling softly. It's a good idea. She watched Lily, who was happily trotting off with the puppy to investigate the potential study room. Then Ashley met Jason's eyes with a somber look. You're kind to do all this, but I need to contribute somehow. He shook his head. Focus on your health for now. You're already contributing by being Lily's mother. It came out more emotional than he intended. He still felt the weight of guilt for the years he hadn't been there. Her eyes flickered with empathy. All right, she acquiesced. Just, please tell me if I ever become a burden. He almost laughed at how absurd that sounded, but the earnestness in her gaze silenced him. You're not a burden, he said firmly, placing a hand on her shoulder. You and Lily are family. Her cheeks flushed at the word family, a tentative smile curving her lips. We used to talk about that, she murmured, voice distant, recalling when they were young and made hypothetical plans about future kids, a shared life. Back then, careers and disagreements had driven a wedge. Now, ironically, a fragile union was forming through the child they'd created, but never raised together until now. They lapsed into silence, each lost in reflection. That night, the board's demands resurfaced. Jason was in his study, reading through pages of finance reports when his phone buzzed. A top executive's name flashed. Jason exhaled wearily, answering. Yes? Sir, we need a decision on the Monaco expansion, came the brisk voice. Investors are edgy without your direct involvement. We might lose the deal unless you fly out for final negotiations next week. Jason's gut tightened. Flying out to Europe for days, maybe weeks, felt unthinkable. He pictured Lily's face if he vanished, Ashley's uncertain expression if he left them behind. But he also recognized the company's momentum. This was a huge expansion that would define the brand for years. He rubbed a hand over his jaw. Let me think. I'll get back to you in the morning. Hanging up, he stared at the flickering cursor on his screen. This was the crux of the life he once thrived on. High-level deals, global expansions, sealing alliances with powerful partners. Yet now, the notion of leaving Ashley and Lily felt like a betrayal of a different kind, abandoning them again, even if only for a short while. He tapped his foot against the floor, mind spinning. He wondered if there was a way to handle the negotiations remotely, or if a delegate could be empowered. But the board's uneasy stance suggested they wanted him there in person to solidify trust. His thoughts looped over and over. On one hand, business required him. On the other, he couldn't walk away from Ashley's slow recovery and Lily's newfound stability. The dread that Ashley might see this as a repeat of the past gnawed at him. Eventually, he closed the laptop in frustration. Tomorrow, he'd talk to Ashley. He refused to leave without discussing it openly first. Perhaps there was a middle path. If not, he'd have to make a choice that risked losing something precious, either a major corporate opportunity or the fragile family he was building. In bed, staring at the dark ceiling, he felt the weight of a question he'd once avoided. Which mattered more, his empire or the people he loved? Before, the empire won every time. Now, fatherhood pulled him in a different direction, rewriting his priorities. He prayed the morning light would bring clarity, because if it didn't, he feared repeating the same mistakes that had shattered everything once before. One thing was certain. He wouldn't stand by and watch Ashley and Lily slip away again, not without a fight. The next morning arrived with a subdued hush. Warm sunlight spread across the mansion's polished floors, and a soft breeze teased the curtains of the ground-floor suite where Ashley had spent another restful night. Upstairs, Lily was already stirring, giggling softly as the puppy playfully tugged at her pajama hem. But in Jason's room, the atmosphere was heavier. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, mind ticking through the conversation he needed to have. Eventually, he rose, dressing in a crisp shirt and slacks. The reflection in his mirror looked as tense as he felt. He knew that leaving for Monaco, even temporarily, risked reopening the wounds of the past. But if he refused to go, the company might lose a major deal and his board's trust. Could he find a balance? He decided not to let the worry fester. First, he found Lily downstairs giving Ms. Carrington a detailed account of the puppy's morning antics. The little girl spotted him and waved. "Hi, Daddy!" She hopped off her chair, the puppy bounding alongside. She wore an unguarded smile so bright it melted part of his anxiety. "Morning, sweetheart," Jason murmured, pausing to ruffle the puppy's ears. "How's your mom? Have you seen her yet?" Lily nodded. "She's awake. We had tea, but she's still kinda tired." Then Lily's wide eyes studied Jason. "Are you okay? You look worried." He forced a lighter expression. "I'm fine. I need to talk to Mama about something important, that's all." Lily simply nodded, trusting him. Before he could step away, she tugged at his sleeve, whispering shyly, "Can we do something fun later? Maybe read the new books Miss Carrington got me." She hesitated, as if uncertain if he had time. His chest tightened. "Absolutely," he promised, kneeling to her level. "We'll read as many as you want." The warmth in her eyes gave him resolve. He wouldn't fail Lily again. Quietly, he made his way to Ashley's suite. The door stood ajar, letting in the hall's filtered light. She sat at a small table by the window, reading from a simple paperback. When Jason appeared, she lowered the book, an inquisitive flicker in her gaze. "Morning," she said, voice gentle. "You're up early." He took a seat across from her. "Yeah, I couldn't sleep well." He exhaled, trying to push aside the knot in his stomach. "There's something we need to discuss. A business trip. Potentially big. My board wants me to go to Monaco to finalize a major deal." Ashley's expression went guarded. Her shoulders tensed. "How long?" "I'm not certain," he admitted. "Could be a week or more. The negotiations are complicated, but it's crucial to the company." Silence stretched, thick with memories of the time he'd left her behind for expansions in far-off places. She placed the book down, fiddling with its edge. "So, are you going?" He leaned forward, resting elbows on the table. "I don't want to. Not with you just recovering and Lily finally feeling settled." His eyes searched hers. "But I'm under heavy pressure. The board sees this as a test, like I'm letting personal matters overshadow business. I'm trying to figure out if I can send someone else or handle it remotely, but it might not be enough." Ashley swallowed, her gaze drifting to the window where morning light played across the rose garden. When she turned back, her expression was firm but not hostile. "I understand business matters, Jason. I always have. My worry is that Lily will see you leaving and think you're choosing the company over her. Over us." He winced, the truth of her words hitting home. "I know, and that's why I haven't said yes yet. But if I just refuse, I might lose the deal entirely. Maybe even my seat of power in the company." Ashley hesitated, her eyes darting to the door as though expecting Lily to burst in any second. Then, "Talk me through it. Why is this deal so important? What's at stake?" Jason explained in clipped, precise terms. "An international expansion, new investors, the board's confidence, the potential for exponential growth." All the while, Ashley listened intently, her brow knit. Finally, she sighed. "That's bigger than I realized. And you've worked so hard to build your empire." "An empire that didn't keep me from losing you," he said, voice tinged with regret. He reached across the table, tentative. "I can't stand the thought of repeating old mistakes." Ashley's lips pressed together. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she placed her hand over his. "Maybe it won't be the same," she offered, voice quiet but steady. "You're telling me now, instead of leaving a note on the counter. You're concerned about how Lily will feel. That's already different." Jason's heart lifted a fraction. "So, what do you think I should do?" She closed her eyes, gathering her thoughts. "If you trust your team to handle it, you could try staying, but if your presence is truly irreplaceable, maybe you go. and we figure out ways to keep Lily reassured every day." She paused. "Because let's be honest, if this is your reality, then you'll sometimes have to travel. Hiding from it won't help." He considered her words, relief mingling with the old fear that traveling would drive a wedge. "You think Lily can handle it, after everything?" Ashley's gaze softened. "She'll miss you, but as long as you show her you'll come back, that she's more important than any deal, I think she'll be okay. We both will." She squeezed his hand gently, though uncertainty lingered in her eyes. "I just can't let fear keep you stuck here if it means undermining all you've built." Jason's chest tightened with gratitude. In that moment, he realized how much Ashley was willing to trust him again, despite the scars. He nodded. "All right, let me see if I can shorten the trip, and I'll call you two every day, send photos, videos, whatever it takes so Lily knows I'm not abandoning her." Her lips curled into a small, brave smile. "That's all I ask." They sat in a hush, hands entwined, until the distant sound of Lily's footsteps prompted them to separate. She skipped in with the puppy, eyes bright. "Mama, are you feeling better today? Can we go outside?" The child paused, noticing the slight tension in the air. "Did you two talk about something?" Ashley exchanged a glance with Jason. "Yes, we did, sweetie," she answered gently. "Daddy might have to take a business trip soon, but he'll explain." Lily's face fell. She blinked, gripping the puppy a bit tighter. "How long? You just got here with us." Jason rose and knelt beside her, heart aching at her fragile question. "I know. I'm sorry. It might be a week, but I'll try to make it shorter. This deal is important for my work, and it's part of how I can keep us all safe and comfortable." He reached to brush her hair back. "But I promise I'll call every day, and I'll come back as soon as I can. No matter what. I won't leave you and Mama." She considered his words, swallowing. The puppy whined, sensing her tension. Then Lily looked to Ashley, who gave a reassuring nod. Slowly, Lily met Jason's gaze again. "Okay," she whispered, "but you have to come back." He tugged her gently into a hug. "Always," he promised, closing his eyes against the sting of tears. Within a day, the arrangements were set. Jason's staff booked a condensed schedule of meetings in Monaco, trying to minimize the trip's duration. The next morning, he gathered his suitcase in the foyer, feeling that old mixture of excitement and dread. Ashley stood by, leaning on a cane Ms. Carrington had procured for her, more for balance than necessity. Lily hovered at her side. Before Jason stepped out, Lily approached, holding the puppy in one arm and a small stuffed animal in the other. "Here," she said, extending the worn plush cat. It was faded, clearly well loved. "Take this so you remember me." Jason's throat constricted. He gently took the toy. "Thank you. I'll bring it back safe." Ashley shifted, exhaling. "We'll be fine here." She managed a small, brave smile. "Just don't let them keep you longer than necessary, okay?" He nodded, cupping her cheek lightly, then turned to place a gentle hand on Lily's head. The puppy whimpered as if to say goodbye. Outside the mansion doors, paparazzi stirred, camera shutters snapping the moment Jason descended the steps. He straightened, ignoring them, focusing on the car waiting to whisk him to the airport. As the gate slid shut behind the vehicle, Lily bit her lip, eyes on her mother. "He'll come back," she repeated quietly, as if convincing herself. Ashley wrapped an arm around her shoulders, guiding her back inside. Days passed. Jason's schedule in Monaco was relentless. Negotiations morning to night, dinners with investors, press conferences in which the paparazzi's questions about his secret daughter occasionally popped up. Each time, Jason calmly addressed the rumor, "My personal life is my own, and my daughter's privacy is paramount." He refused to elaborate, focusing instead on finalizing the expansion contract. Late each evening in his hotel suite overlooking the sparkling coast, Jason video-called the mansion. Lily excitedly recounted her day, sometimes brandishing the puppy in front of the screen. Ashley appeared too, looking more relaxed each time he saw her. She'd sit beside Lily, offering small smiles, occasionally teasing him to hurry home. Just seeing their faces, hearing Lily's unstoppable chatter, grounded him more than any business deal. One evening, as negotiations reached their final stage, he glimpsed Lily on screen with paint smudges on her cheeks. She proudly displayed a brand-new painting, this time of a city skyline next to a big house, with 3 stick figures labeled Me, Mama, and Daddy. He laughed, feeling an ache of longing. Ashley's eyes shone with something that looked like hope. At last, on a crisp Friday morning, Jason signed the final contract. Cameras flashed, reporters fired questions, and the board representatives congratulated him. But all he could think about was the return flight. He practically sprinted from the signing table to his waiting car. 9 hours later, he stood at the mansion gates. They opened promptly, the security detail waving him through. Paparazzi snapped a few half-hearted pictures, but the real story had cooled. Jason didn't care. All that mattered was seeing Ashley and Lily. He stepped out of the car, suitcase in hand, plush cat toy tucked in the outer pocket. Ms. Carrington opened the front door wide, wearing a knowing smile. "Welcome back, sir." He nodded gratefully and hurried inside. The foyer was quiet for a moment. Then soft footsteps sounded. Ashley appeared, leaning lightly on the cane. Lily peeked around her skirt, face igniting with joy at the sight of him. Before Jason could speak, Lily raced across the marble floor, puppy in tow, launching into his arms. He staggered, laughing, clutching her tight. "You're back!" she exclaimed, burying her face in his shoulder. He pressed a kiss to her hair, heart nearly bursting with relief and happiness. Over Lily's shoulder, he met Ashley's gaze. She moved closer, a gentle smile lifting her features. "Welcome home," she said softly. The words, so simple yet so profoundly meaningful. He set Lily down, hugging Ashley with one arm, careful not to jostle her. The puppy circled their feet, tail wagging a frantic rhythm. Ms. Carrington discreetly disappeared, giving them space. Jason looked down at Lily, retrieving the stuffed cat from his suitcase. "Safe and sound," he joked, handing it back. She giggled, hugging the toy. "You were gone a whole week," Lily exclaimed in mock outrage, though her grin showed forgiveness. "But you came back." Jason ruffled her hair. "I promised, didn't I?" He turned to Ashley. "How are you feeling? Any improvements?" She nodded, eyes shining. "Better every day. I'm even walking a bit more without the cane. Lily and I managed to stroll around the garden. She told me all about her lessons and the new paintings she made." Lily nodded vigorously. "I did 4, and the puppy helped." Jason laughed, warmth flowing through him. He realized how precariously close he'd come to letting fear consume him again, to run or to bury himself in business. But somehow, guided by love for this small family, he'd chosen a different path. "Good," he said softly, setting his suitcase aside. "Then from now on we face these things together. If I have to travel again, we'll plan it properly, keep in close contact, no more disappearing acts." Ashley's smile wavered with emotion. "No more leaving us behind," she whispered, her hand sliding into his. He gave it a gentle squeeze. In the hallway, the puppy let out an excited bark, spinning in circles. Lily giggled and darted off, calling for him to chase her. Ashley started forward as well, taking slow, careful steps, but Jason held her arm to steady her. For a moment, they paused, exchanging a look that spoke volumes about healing, forgiveness, and the bright possibilities still ahead. Then together, they followed Lily's joyful echo into the living spaces that now truly felt like home. The once still corridors were alive with laughter, the hush replaced by warmth and belonging. And though storms might rage outside, be they paparazzi or corporate demands, within these walls a family had found the courage to stand strong, bound by a love rediscovered and by the choice, finally, to face the future side by side. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen.